lowest resolution. Genius is thinking, and let's see if this is going to be a success or not in a couple of seconds. And there we go. Look at this. Absolutely amazing. We have 4 images of a horse in Swiss Alps, and we can also open this image individually and download it. Beautiful. You officially know how to create your own ChatGPT, your own code generator, and your own image generator. You're doing an amazing job so far. We only have a couple of models left to do. So video generation and music generation is going to be done using Replicate AI. And after we finish that, we're going to implement Stripe. Beautiful. Let's continue and let's create a music generation API. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do what we already did a few times, and that is we're going to copy the conversation right here in routes and paste it. And we're going to rename it to music like this. Now, if you click on music, you should see the conversation, the same thing as we did a couple of times. And same thing if you go from the dashboard. So now let's go ahead inside music, inside page.tsx right here, and let's slowly modify this so it fits exactly what we want our music page to look like. So first things first, let's modify our heading. Instead of conversation, it's going to be music generation like this. And the description is going to be turn your prompt into music like that. And we're going to change the icon to be music from Lucid React. So make sure you import that and remove the message square because we do not need that. Great. And the colors are not going to be violet. They're going to be emerald like this. And 500 is correct. Now let's just quickly change the placeholder in our prompt form field. So instead of this question, I'm going to write piano solo like this. Great. And what I want to already do is I just want to replace this entire div rendering the messages. So go ahead and replace this entire div, create a new one, and just write music will be generated here like that. And let's change this empty label to no music generated like that. And now what I quickly want to change here, so I'm going to expand this so you can see more of my code. I want to change this messages state. It's not going to use this type, so you can remove this already. And let's change the constant messages and set messages to be music and set music like this. It's not going to be an array. Instead, it's going to be just a type of string like this. While we are here, let's also remove user avatar, bot avatar, and CN from our imports because we're not going to use them. And let's rename the page from conversation page to music page. So make sure to rename the export default and the constant right here. And now let's change our on submit so it matches our set music state. So we are not going to need this at all. We can remove that. Let's just go ahead and write set music undefined every time we click submit. The response is going to be a bit different. So you can change it like this. You can remove this set messages for now and change this to, instead of /API/conversation, to /API/music. Music like that, and just pass in the values. And then you're going to write set music response.data.audio like this and reset the form. Great. And let's just see all the other errors we have. So in here we're checking for messages.length. So let's go ahead and change that. Instead of checking messages length, we're just going to change if there is no music like this. There we go. And now we are ready to actually create the API route. That's because the constants, the form schema file, can stay the same. So prompt is required. If you want to, you can change this to music is required, but we are actually not even showing these prompts. Great. So our form schema is correct and it can stay the same. And what we have to do now is we have to go ahead and copy the API for conversation, paste it, and rename it to music. Like this, route.ts here. And a lot of stuff is going to be changed here actually, because we are no longer using OpenAI for this. We're going to be using Replicate for this. So let's go ahead and go to replicate.com or just Google Replicate AI. Go ahead and find this sign in button or get started and create an account so you can go inside of your dashboard. And this is how my dashboard looks like, because I'm already using Replicate, and you can see I've run a lot of models here already. But Replicate as well as OpenAI have a free tier if this is your first time using it. OpenAI has a bit more explicit way of telling you how much of a free tier you have, but I'm not sure about Replicate. But just be careful and don't spam too much. And yes, you don't need to add your credit card. You can start using it for free. So in order to find your API key, what you have to do is click on your username right here and click on API tokens. And then you can go ahead and copy this and let's add it to our environment variable. So go back inside your code. I'm going to close everything, go inside .environment right here. And let's go ahead and let's add replicate underscore API underscore token like this and just paste that in here. Beautiful. And now that we have this, I just want to show you how to add a limit to here as well. So if you end up needing more credits and add your credit card, you can go into billing right here, and you can also add a spend limit. So if you're ready to only spend $10, change this to 10 and click update monthly spend limit, and then you will not be charged more than that. So you can see that in my rigorous testing over the past few weeks of building this application, I barely used up $7. So $7 on Replicate and $7 on OpenAI, so $14 in total in heavy testing of this project. So I'm pretty sure that you're going to be able to build this entire thing on a free tier. But just in case, you can see it's not really that expensive. Great, so now that we have that, let's go back inside of our application and let's go back inside of our app folder, API, music, route.ts right here. And what we have to do is we have to install a package for Replicate. So go inside of your terminal right here and write npm install replicate like this. Wait a couple of seconds and run your application again and refresh your web application. Great. So you can remove everything regarding OpenAI. We're not going to need it. Instead, import replicate from replicate like this. You can go ahead and remove this configuration and OpenAI constant and instead write const replicate to be new replicate like this. Auth is going to be process.environment, and you're going to use the key from your environment variable. So copy it from here and paste it here like this. You're going to have an error here because there is a chance that it is undefined. So you can fix that by either adding pipe empty string, or you can put an exclamation point at the end like this. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's modify this API handler so it generates music. So what we have to change in here is modify the message from the destructuring of the body to prompt like this. Then we can remove this check for configuration API key that is for OpenAI like this. And instead of checking if there are messages, we're going to check if there is a prompt and write prompt is required like this. And now our response is going to be a little bit different. So we're not going to use OpenAI. We're going to use replicate. But in order to find the correct model, it's really hard to write because it's a very long model. So let's go ahead and let's go into replicate and let me show you how to use this. So go into replicate and find the explore button right here. And here you can see a bunch of models that they have. So feel free to play around with any of these as you want. You see they have music generation, bark, a bunch of stuff, right? So I'm going to show you which one I'm using to create music. And then later, once you finish the tutorial, you can play around with any of those. But just be careful if you're on a free tier because you're going to use them up. So go ahead and find the audio generation models in the collections right here. And I'm going to use Refusion right here. And here you can see, and you can test out, try and generate one of your own, change the test here, but don't change too much, don't play around too much because I don't want you to lose your free tier. And basically, once you click on the API here, you can see how you have to, how you can actually use it. So we already did this. And what we have to do now is we have to copy this. So this is, you can see the exact code that we need to actually generate music. So I'm going to copy this output, which is await replicate.run, and you can see how it uses this very long text. I'm actually not sure if we need this. This looks like some kind of hash, but I haven't tested it without it. So let's just go ahead and copy this right here. And let's go ahead and replace this response with that, like this. So I'm going to expand it as much as I can so you can see. And I'm going to change the output to response like that. And we're going to change this prompt A, which is hard-coded to funky synth solo, to be our prompt, which we're receiving from the body, like this. And then let's go ahead and just pass in the entire response back. And let's change this to music error like that. And now let's go back inside of our page. So inside of dashboard, routes, music, page.tsx right here. Let's go all the way down where we write music will be generated here, and let's change this to be an actual audio file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this div, and I'm going to write a conditional. So only if there is music in our state, in that case, we're going to render an audio element from native HTML. We're going to enable the controls. We're going to give it a class name of w-full and margin top 8 like this. And inside, we're going to give a source, which is a self-closing tag with a source of music like this. So let's go ahead. Let's test if this is working. I'm going to write piano solo like this, and I'm going to click generate. And in a couple of seconds, we're going to see if this is working or not. But don't be scared if this is taking a long time. So the way Replicate AI works is it has a cold start. So if this is your first time running it, you might wait up to a minute or more for this to be generated. But next instances are going to be much faster because it's not doing a cold start. So just be patient. And the way you can check if everything is correct, you can go ahead in your dashboard right here. And you can see that I have refusion starting 28 seconds ago. So if you see that here, that means everything is good, your API is working, and just be patient and wait till it says succeeded right here. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to enable it once it's finished. There we go. You can go ahead and play it. I'm not going to play it just in case someone decides to copyright AI music in the future. But I want to show you how long it took me to do this. So let's see, I'm going to refresh here. It took me 28 seconds to actually run it, but the cold start was almost 12 minutes. So don't be scared if yours is still running. It's completely normal. But the second one you try is going to be much shorter than that. And if you actually take a look, let's take a look at the, I don't know, Stable Diffusion, for example. Every API actually has a webhook when it's completed. So if you are a bit more advanced and know how to work with webhooks, you can go ahead and add a webhook to your API. That way, you don't have to hold your API route into loading for such a long time, almost 12 minutes. You can use a webhook to trigger the event has completed, and then you can show a notification for your user. That's a bit more advanced, and I'm going to save that for some other tutorial. But there are options you can speed up this if you want to. Great, so now you know how to generate music. You can change the volume, you can play it, you can download it. Amazing, you're doing so great. And it also is responsive on mobile as everything so far. Let's check it. If we go from the dashboard and click on music, it works as well. Amazing. So all that's left is video generation, and that's what we are going to do next. Let's create our last AI model, video generation. So we're gonna do the same thing we did a couple of times, but this time we're gonna copy the music app. So let's go into routes inside of your dashboard right here. Go ahead and copy the music folder and paste it inside of the routes and rename the music copy to video like that. The reason we are copying music is because it's gonna be more similar than other tools to the one we want right now, which is video. And now if I try and click on the video, I get music generation instead of a 404. And let's just quickly check if it's the same from the dashboard. It is. Great. And now what we have to do is we have to obviously modify this video page to look like video page and not music generation. So make sure you are on localhost 3000/video. Make sure you're not accidentally editing the music folder. Go inside video folder page.tsx. And let's already remove this import we don't need. So chat completion request message from OpenAI. We don't need that here. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's go and change this music generation title into video generation. And let's change the prompt, the description to turn your prompt into music into video like this. The icon is going to be file audio. The icon is going to be video icon like this from Lucid React. So make sure you import that and remove music like this. And now let's go ahead and change the colors. So it's going to be orange like this, and the value is not going to be 500, but it's going to be 700 like this. So it looks the same as your sidebar and as this tools component right here. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's change the placeholder for the input. Instead of saying piano solo, we're going to write a more realistic prompt, something like clownfish swimming around a coral reef, like that. There we go. And let's go ahead and modify. We're not going to store any music here. Instead, we're going to store video. So let's first change the music page to video page like that. And then let's change the music state to video and set video like that. Now let's modify our onSubmit function. So it's going to be set video like this. And this is going to be set video as well. And let's also modify the API request. So it's going to go to /video and not /music. And the response data is going to be a little bit different. So we are actually going to go ahead and pick the first from the array because that's what is going to be returned from the API. So make sure you modify it from data.audio to data first in the array right here. Great. And now let's go all the way down here so we can actually fix these errors. So instead of checking for music, we're going to check for video, and we're going to write no video generated like that. And the same thing for this. We're going to write video, and we're actually not going to render an audio file. We're going to render a video file like this. And we're going to give it a class name of w-full aspect-video margin top 8 rounded-lg border and bg-black like this. And I also want to give it a controls prop so we can control the video, and inside add a source element with source video like that. So very similar to music. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's actually create this /API video because the prompt can stay the same. So if you check the constants right here, you can see we have a form schema. And let's just change the message to video prompt is required. But again, you actually don't need this at all because we're not displaying it anywhere. Great. And now let's go ahead and close everything and let's go inside of our API and let's copy the music folder again. Let's paste it inside of the API and let's rename it to video. And in route.ts, let's go ahead and let's see what we have to change here. So first things first, we have to go inside replicate again, and we have to find the AI model we want to use. So in my case, you can play around, you can choose whatever you want really. There are many models here. The one I'm going to use is going to be Zeroscope right here. But if you go into collections, you can go ahead and find this videos collection, and you can see that they have a bunch of video models that you can use, and you can feel free to play around with them. But the reason I chose this one called a Zeroscope, so go into Explore and it should be the very first right here, or you can search Zeroscope like this and find it. The reason I chose this one is because it has the lowest time to generate. Everything else is like 1,000 seconds. This one seems to be the fastest, so that's why I chose this one. Great, so if you want to, you can play around and test it, but be careful if you have a free tier. You don't want to block yourself from using the tutorial and have to add a billing. So let's just go into API right here, and let's go ahead and let's copy this output right here so we know what to put in our API. So I'm going to copy this output from here. I'm going to expand this and I'm going to replace this response with that. But I'm going to change the constant to be response like that. And you can see how I'm using Zeroscope right here. So this exact prompt that I copied from here. Great. And let's change this prompt to actually use our prompt. So you can either use prompt like this, or you can use a shorthand because it's named exactly the same, and we're extracting prompt from the body. So we don't need to change absolutely anything. Everything is fine, except we have to change the music error to video error like that. And sending just response is fine. Great. And I think we are ready to immediately test this. So let's go inside of our Genius right here. I'm going to go ahead and write clownfish swimming around a coral reef like that. And I'm going to leave it again. I assume it's going to take a long time to generate because this is another cold start. So be patient. My music took 12 minutes. So I assume this is going to take something like that. So just be patient, and I'm going to unpause the video once it is ready. And there we go. It has generated for me, and this is how it looks. Really, really cool. It's so cool to me that an AI generates this realistic looking videos. And you can even test the prompts more. For example, you can see in this demo right here that they give it a very specific and very detailed prompt. So you can play around with that to get a better result. And let me show you exactly how long it took me to generate this. So I'm going to zoom out a bit. So it took me 42 seconds to generate it. So yeah, it was a bit shorter than this one. This one says 28 seconds, but you know that the cold start was 12 minutes. This one was actually much faster for me. But if yours is still running, as long as you can see it on the dashboard, Zeroscope, that means everything is fine. You successfully finished every single AI tool. Great, great job. What we are going to do now is we are going to implement subscription and API limits to how much free users can use our application. And then we're going to add Crisp for customer support, and then we are going to implement the landing page. So now that we have all of our AI tools working, it's time to create a functionality that is going to limit free users to only be able to use them 5 times. In order to do that, we're going to use Prisma. So let's go ahead and let's set up Prisma first. I'm going to go inside of my terminal right here. I'm going to shut down everything, and I'm going to write npm install -D Prisma like this. I'm going to wait a couple of seconds for this to install, and then we're going to run Prisma init. So it's going to create a couple of files in our project. So let's go ahead and let's run npx prisma init like this. And there we go. We have our Prisma setup. Let's take a look at everything that has been created inside. So we have a new folder called Prisma, and inside we have schema.prisma. Right now it's set to PostgreSQL. We're going to change that to MySQL. And we also have some additions to our .environment file. You can see that this was inserted by Prisma init, and we have a database URL, which is currently a PostgreSQL database URL, which of course is not working. It's just a mock URL. So we're going to change both of those. In order to do that, we have to create our PlanetScale account. So let's go ahead and go to planetscale.com or Google PlanetScale and find sign in or get started button. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and show you what it looks like. Great. So once you're here, if you want to, you can go ahead and click on all of these different options, or you can simply go ahead and click on this create option right here. So just click create, and let's go ahead and let's give this database name AI SaaS like this. And you can go ahead and select a free option right here. And then just go ahead and click create database and just confirm that your total monthly cost is free. I just want to ensure that this looks like to you. So just select the free option right here. So you don't have to pay anything for PlanetScale for your one database that you have. Great. And this can take some time. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to show you what it looks like once it's initialized. So again, just be patient, and you're actually going to see a little pop-up here saying that you are ready to connect. So just be patient and wait for this to finish. And you can see how I have this prompt ready to connect to your database, and I have an option to click Get Connection Strings. So click on either of those. I'm going to use this ready to connect to your database. And in here, you can see that we have to click Create a Password like this. And there we go. Once this has created, you can choose how you want to connect. Go ahead and select Prisma because that's what we're using. So first thing you have to do is copy this database URL, and let's paste that in our environment file right here. So I'm going to replace this entire thing that has generated by Prisma and paste this new string right here using planet scale right here, so p scale, and you can see the name of my database right here. Great. And what we have to do next is modify schema.prisma. So click on this tab, schema.prisma, copy the entire thing, and let's go back inside of our code. Go ahead in schema.prisma, which is in your Prisma folder, and you can just paste it here. And you can see right now it uses the MySQL provider and reads the environment file database underscore URL, which we've added right here alongside everything else we have. Great. So that is actually it for Planet Scale. You can safely close that now. That is ready. And let's go back and work on our application. So one util I want to add before we continue is our Prisma DB client. So let's go inside of our terminal and let's run npm install @prisma/client like this. Wait a couple of seconds for this to install, and then we're going to create a util which is going to be able to access the database using Prisma and this package. So there we go, it's installed, and now let's go inside lib and create a new file called prismadb.ts like that. Go ahead and import Prisma client from @prisma/client and declare global var Prisma to be Prisma client or undefined like this. And then just write const prismadb is equal to global this.prisma or new Prisma client like that. And then we're going to write a condition. So if process.environment.node environment is not identical to production, meaning its development, in that case, we're going to assign global this.prisma to prismadb like that. And just export default prismadb like this. So what does this code do and why do we need this declare global? Well, you can try and remove it, and then you see you have a curly line in global this. So that's why we need this. We add Prisma variable to our global window. Great. And why are we doing this conditional? Why are we checking for global this? Why don't we just do new Prisma client? That looks much simpler. Well, that's because the way Next13 does reloading, it basically, there is a chance that you have a lot of Prisma clients initialized every time you hot reload, every time you change something in your code. So this way we assign that not in production. So in development, we assign this to global this. That way it's not affected by hot reload and you don't get that warning in your console that there are multiple Prisma client instances active. Great. And now that we have that, we can actually go ahead back in our schema Prisma. And let's create the model for our user API limit. So one thing I just want to tell you right ahead, if you are seeing this Prisma a bit different, so if you're not seeing blue colors for the generator client and clearly separated strings, so if everything is in the same color for you, make sure that you're using the Prisma extension. So just type in Prisma, it's the first one. So make sure you install that and use that because it also has some autocomplete features. Great. Now let's write our model. So model user API limit like that. Let's give it an ID, which is a type of string, decorator ID, and a default value is going to be CUID like this. User ID is going to be a string and unique. Count is going to be an integer, and it's going to have a default value of 0. Created at is going to be a date time with a default value of now, and updated at is also going to be a date time with a decorator updated at like this. Perfect. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's try and push that to our database. So I'm going to write npx prisma db push like this. And let's see if this is going to work or if we are going to get any errors. So you can see that we are using Planet Scale. This is the name of my database and mine was successful. So now it's successfully in the database. And every time you modify your schema Prisma, you have to push it and you also have to run npx prisma generate like this. So npx prisma generate is going to add this model to your node modules. So then you have the types and you're not going to get any errors while developing. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's go inside actually, before I run the app, I want to show you how you can take a look at your data. So I'm going to run npx Prisma Studio like this, and I'm going to add it right here. Okay, I'm just going to copy it like this. So I'm going to paste it here. There we go. And now you can see all of your data inside. So you can see this model that we just created, user API limits. And once I click here, we have no API limits inside. So now we're slowly going to create some utils, and we are going to create it first for the conversation model. So we're going to start by protecting the conversation model. And every time we add a new prompt in here in conversation, we're going to create a new count for user API limit. And that is the way we are going to protect the maximum count, the maximum number of times free tier users can use this conversation model. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can keep this Prisma Studio running in another terminal if you want to. I'm going to shut it down and I'm going to run the application instead. So I'm going to refresh this. I'm going to zoom out just a bit and I'm going to wait for it to load. And what we're going to do now is you're actually going to go ahead in our constants file, which we don't have yet. So let's go to the root of our application and create a new file called constants.ts like this. And go ahead and write export const max underscore free underscore counts to be 5. You can of course change this to whatever you want. So for this tutorial, I'm going to allow free tier users to use the app 5 times. You can increase this to 100 if you want to. And now let's go ahead inside of our lib folder, and I'm going to create a new file called api-limit.ts like this. And let's go ahead and let's import out from clerk next.js like this. Let's import PrismaDB from /prismadb because it's in the same folder, or you can use /lib like this. And let's also import max underscore free counts from /constants. Great, so now let's write a util that is going to increase our API limit count every time we ping one of the APIs. So export const increase API limit is going to be an asynchronous arrow function. We're going to extract the user ID using auth like this. If there is no user ID, we're just going to return and break this function. Now, if there is, what we're going to do is write const user API limit like this to be await prismadb.user API limit. If you did not get this autocorrect, or if you're getting an underline in here, make sure that you run npx prisma generate and refresh your application and reload your entire VS Code. So you need to run npx prisma generate and npx prisma db push. And this user API limit is matching what we have in our schema. So make sure you didn't misspell this accidentally, user API limit, and then it should work in here as well. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check whether there is a document in the table for this exact user for its API limit. Because right now, when we register, this model doesn't exist in my Prisma Studio. So first thing I'm going to do is check if it already exists. So I'm going to write find unique. I'm going to open an object and write where user ID is equal to user ID, or you can use the shorthand. So we're going to fetch that by looking at the user ID in that model, and we get the user ID from the auth like that. So if there is user API limit, so if it already exists, in that case, we are going to update its count. So await prismadb.user API limit.update where user ID is equal to user ID, and data is going to be count user API limit.count plus 1 like this. Great. Else we're going to create a new user API limit. So we're going to write await prismadb.user API limit.create data. User ID is going to be user ID and count is going to be 1 like that. Beautiful. And now that we have that, we can go ahead and create another util, which is going to check whether the current user has reached the limit of their free usage. So export const check API limit is going to be an asynchronous arrow function. We're going to extract the user ID again, so auth like this. if there is no user ID, we are immediately going to return false, so we are not going to allow the user to go any further. And then let's go ahead and fetch the user API limit. So const user API limit await prisma.db.user API limit.find unique, where user ID is equal to user ID, like this, if there is no user API limit, or if there is user API limit and the current count is less than max free counts. So if the user has not used up all of their counts, or if they never even created their first generation, meaning that they don't have this user API limit, in that case, we're gonna return true, meaning they can still use our app. But if user has passed the free count, in that case, we're going to return false, meaning that we have to block the user from using our API. Great. And now that we have these two, we are ready to add them to our routes and actually protect them. So let's go ahead and do that next. So let's go inside of our conversation, for example. So I'm going to go into app, API, inside conversation, route TS right here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import increment API limit and check API limit from add/lib API-limit like this. And after I check for these messages right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether we are on a free trial. So const free trial is equal to await check API limit like this. Great. And now if we have passed the free trial, so question mark free trial, in that case, we're going to return new next response, free trial has expired, like this. And let's give it a status of 403. So the status of 403 is really important because this is the status that we are going to recognize on the front end and know, okay, we have to trigger a pro subscription model. So make sure you return a status of 403 in this case if there is no free trial available. Great. And in case this passes, we're going to normally generate the response, and then we're going to run await increase API limit like this. Great. So let's go ahead and test this now. But the best way to test this is to keep your Prisma Studio running in the same place. So I'm going to go ahead and click plus right here. So I have two terminals and I'm going to run npx Prisma Studio like this. And now it's running right here. Great. So I have both of my terminals running now, and let's check this. So make sure that you are in your conversation right here, make sure that you have nothing inside of your user API limit. So select user API limit from here. Great. And let's check now. So I'm going to write, I don't know, hello, how are you? Like this. Let's wait for the response from ChatGPT. Great. So it has responded. And let's see if I refresh right now. I think I should have, great, there we go. You can see that I have my user API limit and it's linked to my clerk user ID and the count is 1. So let's try another one. This is a test. Let's see if that is going to increase our limit. Let's go ahead and refresh again. There we go. Count is now 2. So I'm going to just zoom in so you can see count is 2. And I'm going to go ahead and just try a couple of more times till we reach the count of 5 and see what happens then. Let's see. So I just pasted a couple of messages. I'm going to refresh. There we go. Now it says that count is 5. And if I'm correct, we should now get an error saying that free trial has expired. So I'm going to go ahead in my network right here and I'm going to write expired and click generate, and there we go. You can see this time it didn't work and we got a 403 that free trial has expired. Great job. You officially implemented API limits for your users. What we have to do next is we have to connect them with Stripe to actually check whether the user is in pro or not, but we're gonna do that slowly. What I want to do now is I want to add this code for checking free trials into all of our routes. So let's go ahead and let's copy this and let's go inside of code next right here. So I'm going to add that here inside of code like that. I'm going to go back inside of conversation and I'm going to check for free trial and the if clause for the free trial. And I'm going to paste that after this messages right here. And then all I'm going to do is just await increase API limit after I give the response. So make sure you are doing this in code route. Great. So now that we have that, copy this again. And let's go into the next one. So we did code and conversation. Now let's do image right here. So I'm going to add it right here. Let's go ahead and let's copy this check for the free trial like that. So after we check for resolution, let's do it right here. And after we do the response, await increase API limit like this. Great. So copy this again. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the music right here. Let's paste this like that. Let's copy this code for checking the free trial. And after the prompt, go ahead and paste it here. And after the response, await increase API limit like that. Perfect. Go ahead and copy this one more time. And let's put that into the video as well. So after the prompt, check. Whoops, my apologies. So first we have to paste this import. And then let's go ahead and copy this free trial check. And after the prompt, let's give it right here. There we go. And of course, let's not forget to increase the API limit. So await increase API limit like that. Perfect. So now every single one of our AIs is protected. So if I try image generation, for example, it will immediately fail. You can see that it's not generating anything. And the same thing is true for video. Yes, it's failing too. And piano as well, and code generation as well. So all of them works. And if you go in Prisma Studio and modify this count to, I don't know, 3 and click Save Changes, and then go ahead and try conversation, it should work normally because our max count is 5. And you can, of course, change that in the constants file. So you can change max free counts to 10 if you want to. Great job. What we're going to do next is we're going to go to the front end and add the counter here into the sidebar. And then we're going to go ahead and handle the 403 error in each of our components here so we can display a nice model. Let's build the front-end interface, which is going to show the amount of free generations we have in this sidebar right here. So let me just remind you what I have open. So in my terminals right here, in the first one, I have the app running, and in the second one, I run npx Prisma Studio. So make sure you run this command right here and make sure you visit Prisma Studio on localhost 55555. So I have that opened right here in my second tab. And as you can see right now, I am on count 4. So it doesn't matter what count you are on, but just go ahead and reset this to 0 and click Save One Change so you can develop the same way I am. So just refresh again, make sure this is 0 and refresh here as well. Great. So what we are going to do now is we're going to add another action inside of our API limit lib. So go into the lib folder and go inside API-limit right here. I'm going to expand this, and alongside our check API limit and increase API limit, we're going to add another one. And this is going to be called get API limit count. So export const get API limit count. Like this is going to be an asynchronous arrow function, which is also going to use user ID from auth. Whoops. We already have it, so no need to import anything. We already have this out from clerknext.js. Great. If we don't have a user ID, in that case, you can just return 0. And now we're going to go ahead and try and fetch the user API limit model. So const user API limit is equal to await prismadb.user API limit.find unique like this, where user ID like this. Great. And if there is no user API limit, that means the user has never run a generation before, meaning that we can also return 0 because they haven't used any of their free counts. Otherwise, we are going to return user API limit.count like this. Great. And now what we have to do is we have to run this action inside a server component so we can pass it in our sidebar component, which is a client component. So let's go ahead. Let's go inside of our app folder, inside dashboard route group, and go ahead and select the layout inside the dashboard folder right here. So make sure you are in dashboard layout and not in any other layout because we have 2 layouts. So make sure you're not in this one. Go ahead in the dashboard folder and select that layout right here. Now let's go ahead and let's add this. So const API limit count is equal to await get API limit count like this, and make sure you import get API limit count from add/lib API limit. And we have an error because we are trying to use await inside of an arrow function, which is not asynchronous. So just make sure you mark this as an asynchronous layout like this. And now we're going to use this API limit count and we're going to pass it into the sidebar as a prop. So go ahead and write API limit count with a capital C like this, and just paste that here and save. We have a type error here because our sidebar component does not accept this prop. So go ahead inside of your components folder, inside sidebar right here, and let's go ahead and let's modify our interface, actually create our interface so it can accept that here. So let's go ahead and write interface sidebar props like that, and just write API limit count to be a number like this, and then go ahead and extract API limit count from our props, and just let's give it a type of sidebar props like that, and you can give it a default value of 0 so it's easier to work with. Great. Now that we have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and I'm going to find this last div here, and before this all ends I'm going to add a new component called free counter like this. So it's a component that we don't have yet. It's going to be a self-closing component and we're going to create it in a second. But first, let's go ahead and pass API limit count to it right here. So what we are doing is we are fetching the API limit count in a server component because our server components have access to Prisma right here. And then we are using that to pass it as a prop to sidebar, which is a client component. So that's why we need to do that. That's why we could not fetch it inside of here. And then we are using it from here to pass it to this new component called free counter. So let's go ahead and let's create that component now. So inside of your components folder, create a new file called free-counter.tsx like this. Let's go ahead and write export const free counter like this, and return a div saying free counter like that. Now you can go back inside of your sidebar component and import the free counter from /free counter like this, or you can modify it to be from components like this. So I'm just going to move this right here, and I'm also going to move my icons up here with the global imports. There we go. So now you should not have an error beside this type error right here, and if you expand your sidebar you should see the text free counter in the lower bottom corner. Great. Now I'm actually going to try and keep my sidebar expanded like this, so make sure you're on desktop view when you're working with this. Later on we're also going to have to add that to our mobile sidebar, but for now we're going to wrap up the desktop, so make sure you are seeing this on desktop view. Great. Now let's go back inside of our free counter and let's create an interface for this. So interface free counter props is going to take API limit count, which is a type of number as well, like that. Let's go ahead and let's extract API limit count like that, and let's give it a type of free counter props and give it a default value of 0 like that. Now let's go ahead and do a simple trick which is going to prevent this from causing any hydration errors. So const mounted set mounted is going to be use state from React, and default is going to be false. So we automatically need to mark this as a client component like this. But it's also not going to throw any errors if you don't write use client. The reason for that is because we're only using this free counter component inside another client component. So when you add a component to a client component and don't explicitly mark it here, it's also going to be a client component. But if I were to put this inside a server component, without this sign, it will be a server component and this is going to throw an error. So that's why it's still safe to mark this as use client. Great. Now let's go ahead and write a use effect here, also from React. And we're just going to set mounted to true like that. And if we are not mounted, in that case, just return null. So this way, this is not going to be rendered on the server, meaning that it's not going to cause any hydration errors. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's actually style this. So I'm going to give this div a class name of px3 like this. And inside, I'm going to add a card element from /UI card, or you can move that to /components like I'm going to do. There we go. So now we have the card ready here. Let's go ahead and give this card a class name of bg-y/10 and border-0. Great. And inside, I'm gonna create a card content component. So I also imported that from /components UI card. Let's give this a class name of py-6 like this. And now you can see how I have a small rounded element right here in the lower corner. Great. Now inside, I'm going to create a div with a class name of text-center, text-sm, text-white, margin bottom 4, and space-y-2 like that. And inside of that div, I'm going to go ahead and open a paragraph where I'm going to go ahead and write the current API limit count like this, which you can see is 0 right here. The reason it's 0 is because that is in my database right here. It's 0. So you can see how it changes once we increase it. And I'm going to write API limit count. I'm going to add a slash. And now I'm going to render how many counts are available. So for that, we're going to use our constant max_free counts. So make sure you import that from add/constants like this. So now it's going to write 0 out of 5 right here in your corner and just add a text free generations like this. So now it says 0 out of 5 free generations. Great. And what we have to do now is we have to add another component from Chassis and UI. So let's go ahead. Let's visit the documentation right here and go into components and find the progress component right here. As you can see, let's see how we can install that. So using this npx chassis and UI add latest add progress, I'm going to copy this as npm. I'm going to go ahead in my terminal right here. I'm going to shut down the app for now. And I'm going to go ahead and run this command right here. So I'm just going to expand so you can see npx chassis and -ui add latest add progress right here and confirm the installation. After that has been finished, go ahead and run the app again. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to expand my screen a bit and I'm going to refresh my application here. Great, now that we have that, just below this paragraph right here, go ahead and add progress from /UI progress. So don't accidentally import it from Radix. You need to import it from /UI progress, or you already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to rename these to components because I like to be consistent. Great, now that we have the progress, let's go ahead and let's give it some values. So it's going to have a class name of h-3, so I want it to be a bit thinner, and I'm going to give it a value of API limit count divided by max free counts times 100 like this. Beautiful. And one more thing I'm going to do outside of this div encapsulating our paragraph and our progress, but still inside of card content, is I'm going to add a button component from /UI button. And you already know I'm going to remove these two components like that. There we go. So now we have the button right here, and let's go ahead and write upgrade right here, and let's give it an icon of Zap from Lucid React. So make sure you import Zap from Lucid React, and I'm going to move this to the top right here. Great. Let's give this Zap a class name of W-4, H-4, margin left -2, and fill-white like that. Beautiful. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a class name of W-full. And one thing I want to do is I want to make this upgrade button look a bit special. I want to give this a gradient. I want to make this look more... I want to make this look different than all the others buttons, right? Because this is our upgrade button. So what I could technically do is just modify the background in the class name. But since I want to reuse this button in our model as well, I think it's cool that we utilize the fact that this button component is actually inside of our components folder. And we can freely add our own variant to it. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to close everything and I'm going to go inside of my components folder, inside UI, and I'm going to find this button.tsx. So we already took a look at this when I added it in the beginning of the video. But what we're going to do now is we're going to add another variant right here. So the same way as default, destructive, outline, secondary, ghost, and link exist, we're going to go ahead and after link, or whatever is your last one, go ahead and add premium or whatever you want. You can name this absolutely anything. And let's go ahead and give it a value of bg-gradient-2 right like this. Let's give it a from-indigo 500 via-purple-500 to-pink -500, text-white, and border-0 like this. So I'm going to expand this so you can see how it looks in one line. Even more. Okay, I can't expand it that much, but I can do this. So BG gradient to right from indigo 500 via purple 500 to pink 500, text white, and border 0 like this. And now let's go ahead back inside of our free counter component right here. I expand this so you can see the sidebar on desktop, and go ahead and give this button a variant of premium. You can see how it also auto-completes. And once I save, there we go. You can see how premium this button now looks. And now let's actually go ahead and check if this counter is working. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh everything, and I'm going to go ahead and, well, repeat one of these questions. It doesn't really matter. And let's see if this is going to increase right here. So Genius is thinking, and there we go. It says that I've used up 1 out of 5 of my free generations, and my counter right here is starting to fill. But why is this working? How did it automatically refill? Well, let me explain that to you. So what are we doing? Where are we fetching this information? We're fetching that inside a server component called layout.tsx right here. So we are calling await API limit count. The only thing that is doing is calling Prisma. So how did it know to refresh once I did this generation? What made it update the values, right? Well, let me explain what. Let's go inside of the app folder, dashboard, routes, conversation, page.tsx right here. And let's take a look at what we do once we submit. So you can see that in the try block, we actually call the API request, and then we just assign the data. So nothing in here actually refetches the server component. But in our finally block, this is what I told you I was going to explain later. This is router.refresh. So router.refresh is used to rehydrate all server components fetching the newest data. So once you do router.refresh, it doesn't really matter where you are. All server components are going to get refetched with new data from the database. So that's why I think it's really cool to work with server and client components in Next13. Perfect, so that's why it works. So if you don't have this in your finally block, you're probably not getting any updates. So make sure you have this in every single on submit in our in all of our apps right here. But since we copied and pasted the code, I have it everywhere. Great, amazing job. We of course could change this color a little bit. I think it looks kind of weird. So let me see if we can do that quickly. So what we can actually do is we can change both this progress color and the color of our primary buttons in a color that you saw in the intro video, which is a light purple color. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and let's close everything, and let's go inside of our app folder and find globals.css right here. Now inside the layer base root right here, go ahead and find the -- primary. So this is an HSL value right here, and I'm going to modify it to the color that I like. So I'm going to remove all this in primary, and I'm going to write 248, 90%, and 66% like this. And I'm going to save. And look at this. Now you can see that my button is light purple, and you can see that my progress bar is light purple as well. Perfect. So that's exactly what I wanted. Beautiful job. You just finished the counter. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a Pro model, which opens and then finally connects to Stripe. Now let's create our premium model, which is going to open when we click on upgrade or when we fill up our generations, and then get a 403 error when we try a generation. So in order to do that, first we have to install a package called toStand. So let's go ahead and let's go inside of our terminal right here. And go ahead and run npm install toStand like this. Wait a couple of seconds for it to install and run the app again and refresh if you've shut it down. And now let's go ahead and create a hooks folder in the root of our application, like this. And inside create a new file called use-pro-model.tsx, like this. Go ahead and import create from, not from the main, but from toStand. And just let's go ahead and write an interface for our model. So interface use pro model store, like this, is gonna have is open, which is a boolean, on open, which is a void, and on close, which is a void as well. And now let's go ahead and write export const use pro model to be create. Go ahead and open pointy brackets, use pro model store, go ahead and open parentheses again, write the set prop, write an arrow function, which is going to immediately return an object like this. It is open default value to false, on open is going to be an arrow function, which is going to call the set prop, which we extracted right here, and it's going to set an object is open to be true like that. Go ahead and copy and paste that, rename this to onClose, and this one is going to set is open to false like this. So this gives us global state controls for opening and closing the model from wherever we want. Now let's go ahead and let's create a provider for our model, because it's going to have to be rendered carefully so we don't cause any hydration errors. So in components right here, create a new file called model-provider.tsx like this. And inside, go ahead and mark this as use client, that's important, and export const model provider like this. Go ahead and add is mounted, set is mounted from use state, which is from React, give it a default value of false. Go ahead and add use effect like this. And set is mounted to true inside. And if it's not mounted, in that case, return null like this. Otherwise, return a fragment. And let's go ahead and add pro model inside, which of course does not exist yet. So let's go ahead and let's quickly create our pro model. So inside of components, create a new file called pro-model.tsx, export const pro model like this. And I'm just going to return a div saying pro model like this for now. And go ahead and mark this as use client just to be safe. And now go back inside the model provider and import the pro model from /pro model or /components pro model like this. Now we have to add this model provider to our layout application. So let's go ahead and let's go inside of layout of our app. So not inside dashboard, but inside of our app right here. So this main layout, root layout file. And inside of the body, let's go ahead and collapse this. And just above the children, let's add model provider from /components model provider like this. There we go. So now we have the model provider here, and you can see the text pro model right here. We are of course going to modify this to actually work as a model. So in order to do that, we're going to have to go and add another chat.cn component, and that component is going to be called dialog right here. So you can see how this is going to look like. Great. So this is the command we are going to need. npx chat.cn UI at latest add dialog. I'm going to copy this as npm, go inside of my terminal, and I'm going to run npx chat.cn UI add latest add dialog like this. So just press enter and confirm this installation, and then you can go ahead and run your application again. Great. So I'm going to expand this and I'm going to refresh this. Okay, and now let's go ahead and let's replace this div with dialog component from /UI dialog. So make sure you don't accidentally import this from Redux like this. And you already know I'm going to rename this to /components. There we go. And now let's give it a default value of open like this. And now let's add dialog content from add/components dialog. So again, make sure you have no Radix imports inside. I'm already going to collapse this so they all import in that manner. And inside of dialog content, add a dialog header also from UI dialog like this. And inside, add a dialog title from components UI dialog again. And give this a class name of flex justify -center items -center flex -col gap -y -4 and padding bottom to like this. And let's just write upgrade to genius like this. And there we go. Now you should see a model right here, but you can see that our sidebar is actually of a higher Z index than our model. So let's quickly fix that by going back inside of our sidebar component right here, and let's see what's going on here. or maybe it's not the sidebar. I think it actually might be our layout file. So go ahead inside of dashboard, inside layout right here, and there we go. So we put this Z index, but I think we don't actually need it. So yes, you can see how now the model is above our layout right here. Great, so I'm going to use that. And now go safely back inside of the Pro model right here. And before we do anything, let's actually connect this to our two-stand store which we created. So go ahead and let's add the Pro model controls here. So const Pro model is equal use Pro model from add/hooks use Pro model. And you're going to change this hard-coded open to be Pro model.isOpen like this. And you're going to change on open change to be Pro model.onClose like this. Great. So now you can go ahead and go inside of your use Pro model, for example, and change the default value of isOpen to true. And that is going to open your model. So just do that for now, so your model is visible, so you can see what you're developing. If you change it to false, it's going to go away. So just bring it back to true, or you can even refresh if it's not working. Great. So now that you have that, and we have these controls here, let's go ahead and let's add another another component from Chatcien called badge. So I'm going to go ahead inside badge right here, and I'm going to add npx Chatcien UI at latest add badge. So I'm going to expand this a bit more so terminal is better of better visibility. And there we go. So npx Chatcien UI at latest add badge like this, and just confirm the installation and run your app again. Great. So I'm going to expand this. I'm going to refresh this. Make sure the app is running correctly. There we go. So now alongside this upgrade to Genius, just below that add a badge component from ./UI badge. And I'm going to rename that to /components badge like this. And inside of that badge, go ahead and write pro like this. And now let's go ahead and give it a class name of uppercase dash text dash, uppercase like this, text dash sm, and padding y1 like this. Great. And now what I want to do is I want to create a div right here, encapsulating both of these items here. And I want to give this a class name, flex items dash center like this. I'll make sure it's class name like this. So flex items dash center, gap dash x dash 2, font dash bold, py dash 1 like this. There we go. And I want this badge to be of a gradient similar to what we have inside of this upgrade button. So I want it to look similar. So let's go ahead and do that. So just refresh your page if you close the model and make sure that your default value here is true. We are of course going to change this to false later, but just for development part, it's easier to do it like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go inside of our components UI and find the badge component right here. And the same thing we did with the button. We're going to add another variant here called premium like this. It's going to be bg-gradient-2-r from-indigo -500 via -purple -500 to -pink -500 and text that primary -foreground like this. And also border -0. And now let's go back inside of our Pro model here and let's give this badge a variant of premium like this. There we go. Now it looks much nicer. So basically in the badge we added the same value we have in our button component, right? So this is the premium variant that we added right here, and then we used it in the Pro model variant premium like this. Great job. Now let's go back and let's focus on the Pro model here. So let's add some content inside. So just outside of dialog content, right, of dialog title right here, let's go ahead and add dialog description right here. And yes, I accidentally imported it from Radix dialog, so make sure you don't do that. You have to import it from components UI dialog like that. So dialog description component here. Inside, give it a class name of text-center pt-2 space-y-2 text-sync-900 and font-medium like this. And inside we are going to iterate over our tools. So we're going to get the tools from the dashboard. So go ahead and find the dashboard page. So routes, dashboard page.tsx, and you can either add this to global constants or copy it. You know, you can find a smarter way if you want to, but I'm just going to go ahead and copy this tools constant for now. So make sure you are in dashboard, routes, dashboard page, find the constant tools, copy this, and you can just paste it inside of the Pro model, just like this, right? And I'm also going to copy all of the icons from this page right here. So I'm going to copy this imports from Lucid React, and I'm going to go ahead and paste them here. And the only one we don't need is arrow right, like this. And we're actually not going to need the href at all in any of this, because we're not going to redirect from anywhere. We're just going to display all of the tools available in Pro of our application. Great. So inside the dialog description now, go ahead and write tools.map, individual tool, like that. And let's go ahead and add a card from that ./UI card, or rename it to /components, like this. Great. Let's go ahead and give it some properties. So key is going to be tool.href, like this. Sorry, not href. It's going to be is it label? Yes, like this. Let's add a class name here, p-3 border-black/5 flex items-center and justify -between, like this. Great. Inside of that, create a new div with the class name of flex items-center and gap-x-4. Make sure you don't misspell class name like I did. Great. Inside of that, create a new div with a class name, which is going to be dynamic. So cn, make sure you import that from as/libutils. So as I did right here, we have the cn here, open parentheses. Let's write a default class of w6 and h. My apologies. No, the first dynamic class is p-2 w-fit and rounded-md, and the dynamic class is tool.bgcolor, like that. And then inside, we're going to go ahead and render tool.icon, which is a self-closing tag, and give it a class name, which is also dynamic. So cn w-6 h-6, and dynamic is going to be tool.color, like this. There we go. So now we have all the icons of our tools here. Great. And outside of this div encapsulating our icon, create a new div and render tool.label inside. Let's just go ahead and give this a class name, font-semi-bold and text-sm, like this. Great. And outside of this div right here, but still inside of the card, we're going to add an icon check from Lucid React. So the check should now appear at the end. So make sure you've imported check from Lucid React alongside this imports, which we copied from the dashboard. And let's give this a class name of text-primary and w-5 and h-5, like this. There we go. Great. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and add dialog footer from add/components UI dialogs. So make sure you have imported that right here. And let's go ahead and add a button from ./UI button, or you can rename it to components UI button, like this. And inside, we're going to write upgrade like this, and we're going to add a zap icon from Lucid React. So the same thing we did in our sidebar, like this. Give it a class name of w-4, h-4, margin left 2, and fill-white, like this. And now let's go ahead and give some props here. So size is going to be large, variant is going to be premium, and class name is going to be w-full, like this. Great. And what we are going to do now, actually, well, we're going to go ahead and we are going to change the way we open the Pro model. So now we can close everything and go inside our use Pro model store and change the value of is open to false like this. And let's find proper ways to open this model. So the first thing I want to do is I want to open it when I click upgrade in the sidebar. So for that, let's go inside of our components, not inside of UI. So I'm going to close everything so it's easier. And I'm going to try and expand this. So just be patient for a second. All right. So inside of components, inside of free counter right here, we have this button which says upgrade. So what we are going to do is we are going to add a constant Pro model to be use Pro model just above our mounted use state here, and make sure you import the use Pro model from /hooks use Pro model like this. Great. And now that you have that Pro model, you're going to add an on click here to this button to say Pro model.onOpen like this. And now when I click on the upgrade, you can see that it shows this upgrade to Genius right here. Great. And now what we have to do is we have to add the Pro model to open every time we capture a 403 error. So let's go ahead and do that now. So there are certainly different ways you can do this. You can find one middleware which is going to look for 403 errors, but let's do it the simplest way for now. I'm going to go inside of my dashboard. I'm going to find the conversation app first. I'm going to go inside of page.tsx. And there we go. We wrote a to-do here, open Pro model. So we're going to search through all of our to-dos and we're going to add open Pro model wherever we need to do that. So what I want to do now is in this catch form, we have to check if the error is a 403. So I'm going to remove this and I'm going to remove this as well. And I'm going to write if error response status is identical to 403. In that case, we're going to open the Pro model. So first we have to add the Pro model. So just above the router, const Pro model is equal use Pro model from /hooks use Pro model like this. And now in here, in this if block, just go ahead and run Pro model.onOpen like this. Great. And make sure you add question marks here because errors can be, we don't have a guarantee that it's always going to be this 403 error, which we are expecting. It can be any error and it could be, it could have a different structure. So that's why I'm putting question marks, because this is one of the options that I know might happen. And if that option happens, we have to open the Pro model. So let me just explain when this happens. So if you go inside of your conversation route, you can see that if you don't have a free trial, in that case, we throw a next response error with a 403 status. So that's why it's very important that you put a 403 here. Please make sure that wherever you do in this if block, if there is no free trial, throw a 403 error. That is very, very important. So now let's go ahead and let's try and fill this up. So I'm just gonna ask it a couple of questions. So it fills up this free generations right here on the bottom until we get to 5 out of 5. Or you can simply go to Prisma and increase it here as well if you want to. This seems to be taking its time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So in here, I'm going to increase it to 5 out of 5 and click save. And now each of my requests should throw an error. So you can see I have a 505 here. I'm going to go ahead and write test inside. And there we go. So we caught the 403 error and we opened a model. So if this is not working for you, let's go ahead and check everything you need to do. First of all, make sure that you are in the dashboard routes conversation page.tsx. Make sure that you are in the onSubmit function. Make sure that you catch the error and that you check for error.response.status 403. Next, make sure that in the equivalent API, sorry, this is for code. So the equivalent route conversation route.ts, make sure that you're actually throwing a 403 status if there is no free trial. There we go. So you can see how amazing this looks. Perfect. And now we have to do that for all others as well. So the simple way we can do that is if you copied and pasted the code we did, I'm just gonna search for to do like this, and you can see that I have all the places where I need to add a Pro model. But in case you didn't add the comment, don't worry, I'm gonna show you exactly where this is. So let's see, click on this one and I'm gonna show you exactly what that is. So go inside of your dashboard, routes, code, page.tsx right here. And I'm also going to open the conversation just so I can copy and paste stuff. So inside of the catch function, I'm just going to copy this if clause right here, and I'm going to replace this console log and this right here. And of course, we have to add the pro model. So let's go to the top of the code page right here, add const pro model to be use pro model from hooks, use pro model like this. Let's go ahead and let's check code generation now. So if I try something inside, there we go, I have a model here as well. Perfect. Now let's go ahead, and I'm already going to copy this. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next one. So this is routes. Which one is it? Where am I? Image. Okay, so this is routes image page.tsx. Go inside of here, replace this. There we go. Let's add the pro model. So const like this. There we go. Let's test out the image generation. Works as well. Great. Now let's do either video or music generation. So let's see what we are here. So music, let's do music first. So same thing here. I'm just gonna copy and paste it from here. So remove the comment and the console log in the catch block and add the pro model to the top. So const pro model is use pro model like this. There we go. I'm already gonna copy it, and let's just test if music is protected as well. So I'm gonna write anything here. There we go. The pro model has opened. And now let's go ahead and finish the last one, which is video route. So go inside of your video folder, page.tsx right here. And just go ahead and paste this here and add a pro model one last time. There we go. Perfect. And now if we test the video, there we go, works as well. One thing that I think it's not working is the mobile sidebar. So if I test it right here, there we go. Here it says 0 out of 5 free generations, but on desktop it says 5 out of 5. So why is that happening? Well, that's because we did not pass the API count from our dashboard to our mobile sidebar. So let's go ahead and let's see how we can fix that. So what we have to do is we have to go inside of our components inside navbar right here. And this is a server component, meaning that we can fetch stuff from here and don't have to prop drill through dashboard layout like we did with the sidebar. So inside your navbar component, where you hold the mobile sidebar and the user button, so it's located here in components navbar right here. You can go ahead and write const API limit count to be await, get API limit count from /lib API limit. Of course, we have an error that we are using await in an arrow function, which is not asynchronous. So just mark this navbar as asynchronous like this. Now, when we have this API limit count, you can go ahead and pass it to mobile sidebar as API limit count like this. Now go ahead and inside of your mobile sidebar, so mobile sidebar inside the components folder right here, let's go ahead and create an interface. So interface mobile sidebar props. It's going to take API limit count, which is a type of number. Let's go ahead and let's extract API limit count, and let's give it a prop type of mobile sidebar props like this. And now that we have the API limit count, we can just pass that to this sidebar inside of sheet content right here. There we go. And now our mobile sidebar works perfectly as well. Great job. What we are going to do next is actual Stripe connection and subscription creation. So in order to integrate Stripe, first thing we have to do is create a Stripe account. So go to stripe.com or Google Stripe and go ahead and find a way to log in or create an account. So I already have that. So I'm going to go ahead and just enter my dashboard. Once you're inside, you're going to see a screen similar to this. So what we want to do is you want to find this top right corner and you want to click create a new account right here, or maybe this was what you initially did. So if you already did that, fine. But since I already have this account, my screen is a bit different. So I'm going to name this AI SaaS tutorial like this. And I'm going to click create an account right here. So now what we have to do is we have to copy our API keys. So go ahead and click for API keys for developers, or if you don't have this screen, so let me just zoom in. So if you don't have this screen, API keys for developers, you can just click for developers here and basically you can find it somewhere. So there we go. You have the publishable key and you have the secret key right here. So you need to use this secret key. So just click on this eye and there we go, click to copy like this. And once you copied it, so make sure it's this secret key right here. Copy that and then go inside of your .environment file like this. And you can paste it anywhere. So at the bottom, I'm going to write stripe underscore API underscore key like this. There we go. Great. So now that we have that, leave this open because we are going to need to create some webhooks later. So don't close it just yet, but we are not going to do anything more for now. Great. What I want to do now is I want to install a package for Stripe. So go inside of your terminal and run npm install stripe like this. There we go. And run the application again. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a library for Stripe. So go inside your lib folder and create a new file called stripe.ts. Go ahead and import Stripe from Stripe like this and export const stripe to be new Stripe. And instead, inside you're going to use the process.environment. Of course, you're going to use the key that you pasted here. So stripe underscore API key and just paste it here like this. And this gives an error. So just go ahead and open an object here. And to fix this error, you can either use pipe string or you can use exclamation point like this. Great. So inside, I'm going to use the API version of 2022 11.15 like this. And TypeScript is going to be true like this. Perfect. And now what I want to do is I want to create a route for my Stripe. But before I do that, I actually have to go in my schema Prisma and create a new model for user subscription. So let's do that first. Let's go inside of Prisma, schema.prisma, and the same way we did with model user API limit, we're going to create model user subscription like this. We're going to have an ID of string, which is going to be an ID, and the default value is going to be CUID like this. We're going to have the user ID, which is going to come from clerk, which is string and unique. We're going to have Stripe customer ID like this, which is going to be an optional string, is going to be unique, and we're going to map it to this name, Stripe underscore customer underscore ID. So this is a way that we can access this both through this Pascal case. Actually, I'm not sure. Sorry, I said Pascal case, but I'm not sure what's the proper name of this one. So we can either access it using these underscores, which is what Stripe API uses, or using this camel case that we are used to in JavaScript right here. So that's why we are doing this map right here. Great. And now we're going to repeat this for Stripe subscription ID, which is also a string, unique, map, name, Stripe underscore subscription underscore ID. And we have Stripe price ID, which is also an optional string. It's not unique, so this one is just map, name, Stripe underscore price underscore ID, and Stripe current period end, which is an optional date time, and map that to name, Stripe underscore current underscore period underscore end like this. Perfect. So let me just search for Stripe to see if we misspelled anything. Okay, so Stripe customer ID seems correct. Stripe subscription ID seems correct. Stripe price ID seems correct. And the map should be the same thing we have here, but separated with underscores. Great. So make sure you didn't do any misspells here. Subscription, customer, price, everything seems fine. Current period end. I think this is fine. Great. And what do we have to do every time we modify our schema Prisma? Well, we have to first shut down the application, run npx prisma generate. So we add that to our node modules, and then npx prisma db push. So we push that to planet scale. And once you do npx prisma db push, you can go ahead and run your application again. If you want to, you can reset the Prisma Studio just in case. So I'm doing this in my other terminal. So I'm running the app here, but I run Prisma Studio in my other terminal. And now if you go here and if you close this user API limit, you can see that we have user subscription as a model now as well. So you can prepare that here, right? So just go ahead and select user subscription and there should be no results inside. Great. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's create a route, which is actually going to create our subscriptions. Great. Let's go inside of app folder, inside of API right here, and go ahead and create a new folder called Stripe. And inside of that, create a new file route.ts like this. Let's go ahead and let's import auth and current user from clerk next.js. Let's go ahead and import next response from next server. Let's import PrismaDB from libPrismaDB. Let's import Stripe from libStripe like this. And let's import, one util that we have to create. So what we are going to do is remove this import for now and go back inside of your lib, inside of utils right here. And go ahead and just write export function absolute URL. Path is going to be string like this and just return backticks like this. Go ahead and open the special object and write process.environment.next_public_app_URL and then append the path from the prop right here. So why do we need this? What is this exactly? Well, first thing, let's add this to our environment variable so we can discuss it further. I'm going to go inside of my .environment. I'm going to add this and it's going to be http://localhost 3000 like this. So make sure that you don't add a backslash at the end and make sure that this is the actual route that you're running your application on. So for me, it's localhost 3000. If for you is something different, then make sure that you use that. Great. So why am I doing this? Well, that's because you will see that when we build this Stripe route right here, it's going to need to take a return URL. And the return URL cannot be just /settings or /dashboard. It needs to be an absolute URL because Stripe has no idea what application it's using or where it's hosted. So that's why we need to give it an explicit absolute URL so it knows how to go back to our website. So obviously in production, we're going to have to change this to our actual URL. And now we can import that absolute URL from libutils like this. Great. And now let's create the settings URL. So const settings URL is going to be absolute URL like this, and it's going to go to /settings like this with 2 T's. So what this is going to generate is going to call localhost 3000 /settings. So /settings, so just make sure that you don't put a slash here because then it's going to be /settings. That's not something we want. So make sure it doesn't have a trailing slash at the end. Great. And now that we have that, let's go ahead and write export asynchronous function get like this. Let's open a try method inside. And while we are already here, let's do the catch first. So catch error console log. Oops. So go ahead and log Stripe error like this and the error like that and return new next response internal error with a status of 500 like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's first extract the user ID from auth, which we imported at the top. And let's get the user from await current user, which we also imported from clerk. If there is no user if there is no user ID, or if there is no user, return new next response unauthorized with a status of 401 like this. Great. Now let's go ahead and try and find current user subscription. Const user subscription is equal to await prismadb.user subscription. So again, if you're getting a curly red line here, or your Prisma did not autocomplete the user subscription, make sure that you have the user subscription in your schema Prisma. Make sure you didn't misspell it. Make sure you did npx Prisma db push and npx Prisma generate. And if that is still not working, you can just reload your entire VS Code and then try again. Great, so await prismadb.usersubscription.find unique like this, where user ID like this. So we're gonna find a subscription based on the currently logged in user ID. If there is a user subscription already, and if there is user subscription dot stripe customer ID, in that case, once user points to this API route, we don't want to create a checkout page. Instead, we want to redirect the user to the billing page so that they can cancel their active subscription. In order to do that, we're going to write const stripe session is equal to await stripe.billing portal.sessions.create like this. And inside of this object, let's give it a customer user subscription dot stripe customer ID, and return URL is going to be settings URL, which we defined right here. That's the absolute URL thing. Great. So once the user finishes doing whatever they want on the billing portal, they're going to be returned to localhost 3000/settings, which for now is a 404 in our project, but don't worry, we're going to fix that later. Great. So we have our Stripe session, and what we have to do still inside of this if block is actually return that back. So return new next response like this, JSON.stringify like that, URL Stripe session.url like this. Perfect. And now that we have that, let's see what happens if we don't have a Stripe subscription. So if we don't have a Stripe subscription, we want to create another form of Stripe session. So go ahead and write const stripe session again, but this time we're going to use await stripe.checkout.sessions.create. So we're not going to create a billing portal, but a checkout session because it's users' first time subscribing to our application. We're going to give it a success URL to be settings URL, but it's also going to be the cancel URL. So we don't really care for our application. It can be the same. Payment method types are going to be an array, and I'm only going to accept credit card. Mode is going to be subscription like this. Billing address in collection is going to be auto. Customer email is going to be user.email-addresses. So this is from clerk. So this user object comes from clerk right here. So clerk has an array of email addresses, and we're just going to pick the first one like this .email address like that. And line underscore items is going to be an array inside with just one object. So this is going to be our product, and it's going to have price underscore data, which is an object. Currency is going to be US dollars. Product underscore data is going to be another object with the name of Genius Pro, and description is going to be unlimited AI generations like that. Perfect. So we finished up price data. Actually, we haven't. So we finished up product data. Now we have to add the unit underscore amount, which is going to be 2000. So this is equivalent to $20. And we're going to add the recurring option because this is a subscription to be on a monthly interval like this. Great. And lastly, let's just give it a quantity of 1. So quantity is part of the main line items object, not the price data object. You can see price data is a separate object for itself. So make sure you put the quantity outside of the price data object. Great. And one more thing that we have to pass outside of line items, so you can close line items. I mean, you don't have to close them, but just outside of the array, make sure that you add metadata. This is actually very important, user ID. The reason metadata user ID is important is because this is not going to create anything yet. This is only going to open the checkout page. And only after user successfully purchases our monthly subscription are we going to create a webhook, which is going to catch that and then is going to read the metadata, find the user ID, and then say, oh, okay, so this checkout, which was just completed successfully, belongs to this user ID. So it's very important that you pass that. Otherwise, users will be able to check out and subscribe to your application, but you won't know who actually subscribed and who to give subscription to. So that's why this metadata is very important. Great. So now we have that, and we can now simply do a return new next response json.stringify like this, URL stripe session.url like that. Perfect. So you just finished the Stripe checkout page. Great. And what I want to do now is I want to create a webhook for our Stripe. So I'm going to close everything here, and we are going to go back inside of the app folder, inside of API, and create a new folder called webhook like this. And inside, create a new file, route.ts like that. Perfect. So let's go ahead and let's import Stripe from Stripe. Let's go ahead and import headers from next/headers like that. Let's import next response from next/server. Let's import PrismaDB from PrismaDB. And let's import the Stripe util that we created from as/libstripe. Now let's export asynchronous function post, which is going to take the request, which is a type of request. Let's go ahead and let's get the body in a form of await request.text like this. And let's get the signature. So const signature is equal to headers.get stripe-signature as string. Now let's create a let for event, which is a type of stripe.event like this. And now we're going to open a try and catch block right here. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's write event is equal to stripe.webhooks.construct event. We're going to pass in the body, we're going to pass in the signature, and we're going to pass in the process.environment. And you already know which one, this Stripe API key. Actually, no, my apologies. Actually, this is going to be stripe_webhook_secret, which we're going to create in a second. So we don't have this yet, but don't worry, we're gonna create it. My apologies, I thought it was the other one. Great, and let's just add a catch here for an error of any, and return new next response webhook error.message and a status of 400 like this. Great. And now that we have that, let's create the logic which is going to capture the current event. So we are only going to look for two events: the checkout session completed and invoice payment succeeded. So two events, because in our Stripe route, we only do two things. We are either doing the billing portal or we are doing the checkout session. So those are two separate events. One is going to either cancel or upgrade the subscription, and the other one is going to create it for the very first time. So those are the two events that we are going to look for inside of our webhook. So let's go ahead and let's write const session is equal to event.data.object as stripe.checkout.session like this. Great. Now let's check for the first event. So if event.type is identical to checkout.session.completed. So make sure you don't misspell any of this. In that case, let's go ahead and retrieve the subscription using Stripe. So const subscription is equal to await stripe.subscriptions.retrieve and just pass in session.subscription as string like this. If there is no session, $.metadata, $.user ID. So that's what I was talking about. We have to pass that user ID in the metadata. But if it's not here, we don't know who this subscription belongs to. In that case, we have to throw an error. Return new next response user ID is required like that. And let's just pass in a proper status of 400 as well. Great. If there is, we can go ahead and actually create a Prisma subscription. So await prismadb.user subscription .create like this, and the data we are going to pass inside is going to be user ID, which is going to be session metadata user ID. So the same one we had right here. So that's how we are going to match the currently logged in user using webhook, because in this webhook we cannot use clerk because this webhook is going to be running independently from our application, right? And we're also going to have to add this webhook to public routes as well. Great, because it's going to be accessed by Stripe in a different way. Great, so that's how we get the current user ID without actually being logged in. And now we have the Stripe subscription ID, which is subscription.id. We have the Stripe customer ID, which is subscription.customer as string. We have the Stripe price ID, which is subscription.items.data, first in array because we only have one item anyway, .price.id like that. And Stripe current period end is going to be new date, which is going to take in subscription dot current underscore period underscore end times 1000 like this. Perfect. So we created a user account in case this event is run right here. Great. So let's go outside of that if function and let's check for the second one. And that is if user just upgraded their subscription and they already had one before. Maybe it has expired or something. So if event.type is identical to invoice.payment underscore succeeded. Whoops. Like this, in that case, const subscription is equal to await stripe.subscriptions.retrieve like this, session.subscription as string again, and we're simply going to update the existing user subscription. So await prismadb.user subscription.update where Stripe subscription ID is equal to subscription.id like this, and data is going to be Stripe price ID because we have a new price ID now because we have an entirely new subscription. So subscription.items.data first in array.price.id, and we are going to update the current period end because user just renewed their subscription. So new date and inside Stripe, subscription dot current underscore period end times 1000 like this. Perfect. And now that we have that, all we have to do is just return new next response null and the status of 200. So this is actually quite important. Make sure that you return this. It doesn't matter that we are not sending anything, but it can mess with the webhooks functionality if you don't do it properly. Great. So what we have to do now is we have to actually create this environment variable, but there is a certain way we have to do it in local development. What we have to do is we have to go back inside of Stripe and you have to click on developers right here in the corner. So make sure you click on this developers button, go inside of your webhooks here. And when you are in production, you're going to click add on endpoint, but we are local. So we're going to click test in a local environment. So first thing you have to do is download the CLI. So you can click on download the CLI right here and you can see some options on how to do that. So I'm on a MacBook, so I can just use brew. If you're on a Windows, you can go ahead and download from GitHub and run stripe.exe and a bunch of other options from Linux, Mac OS, and a bunch of other tools you might use. So make sure you have the Stripe CLI set up. And now you have to do the Stripe login. So I'm going to copy this to the clipboard. I'm going to go ahead in my terminal and I'm going to open my third terminal actually, because one runs my project, one runs my Prisma. So I'm going to add a new one and this one is going to do Stripe login. There we go. So my pairing code is this one, and I have to click on this link right here and open it. And there we go. It's opened in my dashboard now here. And you can see that I have the very same pairing code that is in my terminal. So that way I know, okay, this is certainly mine and I can allow access to it. There we go. Now I have my access granted, and take a look at my terminal. You can see that the Stripe CLI is configured right here. Yeah, okay, so everything is correct. That's what I wanted to point out. Great, now let's go back inside of the dashboard AI right here. And what we have to do is we have to simulate listening to our webhook. So copy the second one, and you should see the completed green tag right here. So go back inside of your terminal now. Copy this, and you have to modify it a little bit. So it's not localhost 4242, instead it's 3000/API/webhook. So the route which we just created, localhost 3000/API/webhook. I just want to zoom out so you can see it in one line. Stripe listen --forward--to localhost 3000/API/webhook. Press enter like this. There we go. You can see that it now says completed here as well. And now we finally got our webhook signing secret. So you can go ahead and copy this. So starting with WHSEC. So go ahead and copy this entire thing up to the last number. Make sure you don't accidentally copy some spaces. So be very precise when copying this. And then you can create this Stripe_webhook secret in your environment file. So go ahead and add Stripe_webhook_secret like this, and just paste that in here. Just make sure there are no trailing spaces on either end. Great. So Stripe webhook secret, and just double check in the webhook that you're actually using that one. There we go. And make sure to keep this running in your terminal every time you are developing. Otherwise, your Stripe webhook is not going to work. So for now, make sure that your app is running, make sure that your Prisma Studio is running, and make sure that you have the Stripe listen forward to localhost 3000/API/webhook running as well. Perfect. So I'm going to close this now. And what we are going to do now is we're going to actually make it so that when we click on this upgrade button, it actually calls this route Stripe, which is going to either open the billing portal or open the checkout session. So let's go ahead and let's close everything, and let's see how we can do that now. So let's head inside of our components, inside of our Pro model right here. I'm just going to expand this. And what we're going to add is we're going to add const on subscribe to be an arrow function, and it's going to be asynchronous like this. Go ahead and open a try and catch block. So you can just log the error here, and let's just write Stripe client error like this. And let's go ahead and just do const response is equal to Axios. So make sure you import Axios. I'm going to move it to the top of my imports all the way up, but always make sure your imports are below use client. So that's also important. Great. So we have the Axios now. So Axios is going to be .get/API/Stripe, because that is the route we created in our app folder. API, we have the Stripe folder, route TS, and you can see that it is a get method. So that's why we do Axios.get/API/Stripe. And what are we going to get in this response? Well, you can take a look at that right here. So we are going to get an URL inside of an object for both cases. You can see URL at the bottom and URL in this case too. Perfect. So let's go ahead and run window.location.href is going to be equal to response.data.url. So I just realized that my VS Code automatically added await response, and I didn't mention anything about it. So that's because I honestly didn't even notice this. So here is a screenshot of an alternative way you can do this. You can put await in front of Axios.get, and that is a preferred way of doing this, like this. But before we do that, let's also add a loading state. So loading, set loading, use state from React, give it the default value of false, and I'm just going to move this along with the other global imports like that. And in the finally, I'm going to add set loading to false. And in the try, I'm going to add set loading to true like that. There we go. And now let's just add this on subscribe to be an on click of this button like that. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to try and click upgrade, but I'm just going to refresh first just in case. So again, make sure you have your Prisma Studio running so you can look if there are any active subscriptions here. So here I'm looking for user subscriptions in the Prisma Studio. Nothing is here. Make sure that you have your webhook running. So I'm just going to open my terminals quickly. So make sure you have this terminal running right here. Make sure you added this Stripe API webhook. And now let's go ahead and let's see if this is going to work. So I'm going to click upgrade right here. And we forgot to append the loading states to it, but there we go. You can see that it uses my email that I logged in with. You can see that it put $20 per month, unlimited AI generations. Now let's use the test credit card from Stripe. And I'm just going to expand this so you can also keep my so you can see my terminal. So open your webhook terminal here so you can see the actions in real time here. I'm going to add a fake Stripe credit card like this. I'm going to add some more fake information. I'm going to use my name and I'm going to click subscribe. Now let's see what happens. Let's see if we did everything correctly or if we did a mistake. And we did a mistake. We are getting a 401 error here. And let's take a look at why that happened. So now if you refresh your Prisma Studio, I'm pretty confident you should see nothing here. That's right. So it didn't work. The reason it didn't work is because we forgot one crucial thing. So it tried to go to our localhost 3000/API/webhook, but we are giving it a 401 error, meaning that we are not authenticated. But how do we do that? How do we fix that? Well, very simply using Clerk. So we have to go inside of our middleware.ts right here. And alongside public routes, we also have to add /API/webhook like that. And now our webhook is public. So let's repeat this process one more time. So I'm just make sure you log in, make sure you go to /dashboard. So you manually have to go to /dashboard. Go ahead and click on upgrade again. And I'm going to keep my terminal running again. And hopefully this time we are not going to see 401. Instead, we're going to see 200 and we're going to see a new model in our Prisma Studio. So let's go ahead and write this. I'm going to use my name. Let's click subscribe. Fingers crossed. In a couple of seconds. There we go. All events are 200 and we have succeeded. This is a 404 page because settings page does not exist yet, but we are going to create that now. And let's see our Prisma Studio. If I refresh here, there we go. Look at this. My user ID, my customer subscription, and my period. So I can see if it has expired or not. Beautiful. Amazing, amazing job. Great. And now let's actually go ahead back to /dashboard. And let's create this settings page. But before we do that, let's create a useful util to check if our currently logged in user is subscribed or not. So we can't just check whether it has a subscription in the database. We also have to confirm that it has not expired, right? So we're going to create a util for that. Go inside your lib and create a new file called subscription.ts, like this. Let's go ahead and import out from Clerk again. And let's import PrismaDB from /lib PrismaDB or ./PrismaDB, depending on how you prefer it. Let's write a constant for an entire day in milliseconds. So const day in milliseconds is equal to 86_400_000, like this. Great. Now let's write export const check subscription is a synchronous arrow function like this. Let's extract the user ID from out, like that. If there is no user ID, in that case, return false, meaning we have no way of checking whether user is subscribed or not, so we are just going to assume that they are not. Next, we're going to try and find the user subscription. So const user subscription is equal to await prismadb dot user subscription dot find unique. I'm just going to expand this so you can see a bit more, like this, where user ID is equal to user ID, or you can use the shorthand, and we're going to select the following. We're going to select Stripe subscription ID to be true. We're going to select Stripe current period end to be true. We're going to select Stripe customer ID to be true, and we're going to select Stripe price ID to be true as well. Now let's check if we actually got that user subscription. So if there is no active user subscription, in that case, we can also return false, because obviously this user is not subscribed to Pro. And now let's check if it has a subscription, but let's check if it's actually valid and not expired. So const is valid is going to be user subscription dot stripe price ID and user subscription dot stripe current period end question mark dot get time plus day underscore in milliseconds like this is greater than date dot now like this. So I'm going to expand it even more. And to fix this error, you can just go ahead and put an exclamation point right here. So basically what we are doing here is we're checking if the current subscription period end plus we are giving it one day of grace period is larger than the current date. And that's the way we check if it has expired or not. And we're just going to return question mark is valid. So please make sure you don't accidentally do this. It's not the same thing. I'm using question mark to ensure that this is valid is always a boolean like this. There we go. So we now have that. And now we can safely create our settings page. So let's go ahead. I'm going to close everything. I'm going to go inside of my app folder. I'm going to go inside of the dashboard routes, and I'm going to create a new folder called settings like this. Inside of settings, I'm going to create page.tsx, and let's go ahead and write settings page like that. And let's return a div like this. And let's add a heading component from add/components heading like that. Let's give it a title of settings. Let's give it a description of manage account settings like that. Let's give it an icon of settings from Lucid React. Let's give it an icon color of text-gray-700. And let's give it a BG color of BG-gray-700/10 like this. And I'm just going to separate these imports. And let's actually try and go to our settings now. There we go. So we are on the /settings and it's showing this exact thing that we are coding right now. Great. So let's stay here. And below the heading, let's create a div with a class name of px-4. A large is going to be px-8 space -y-4 like this. Let's create a div with a class name of text-muted-foreground and text-sm. And inside, we are either going to say you're currently subscribed to a pro plan or you're currently on a free plan. So what is the conditional to use that? Well, we're going to use the UDL we just created. So let's go ahead. Since this is a server component, we can just write const is pro to be await check subscription from add/lib subscription and make sure to mark this as a synchronous function. There we go. So now we have the is pro right here and we can use conditional now. So is pro, in that case, you are currently on a pro plan. Otherwise, you are currently on a free plan like this. There we go. You can see for me, it says that I'm currently on a pro plan because I just did a successful subscription, and you can see that my subscription is in the Prisma Studio. And since I just did it, it's certainly not expired. Perfect. So it works exactly as we expect it to work. And what we want to do now is we want to create a button to show billing inside, right? So let's go ahead and let's do that. So in order to do that, we're going to have to create another component called the subscription button. Let's go ahead. I'm going to close everything, go into components and create a new file, subscription_button-button.tsx like this. Let's go ahead and export const subscription button like this. And let's write an interface for it. So interface subscription button props is going to take is pro option, which is a boolean like this. Great. And I did a mistake here, so it should be like this. Sorry. And let's extract is pro here. Let's give it a default value of false, and let's assign the props subscription button props like that. Great. And let's just immediately mark this as use client like this. And let's go ahead and let's return a button component from ./UI button, or you can rename it to components UI button like this. And inside, I'm going to use the isPro to either say manage subscription or upgrade. So depending if we are subscribed or not, it's going to be different when user visits their settings page. And here we're going to do the opposite. So if it's not Pro, in that case, we're going to add the little zap icon we already did a couple of times from Lucid React like this. And let's go ahead and give it a class name of W-4, H-4, margin left 2, and fill-white like this. And now for the variant, we're also going to use the isPro condition here. So if we are Pro, we're going to use default. Otherwise, we're going to use premium. Great. And let's go ahead and add onClick to be onClick, which we have to create right now. So let's go ahead and write const onClick. It's going to be an asynchronous arrow function like this. Let's open a try and catch block. So error, console log, billing error like this. Inside of here, let's go ahead and write const response is going to be again await axios.get /API/stripe like this. So the same place, and make sure you import Axios. So the same place we are doing in the Pro model. But what is the difference? Well, there isn't a difference, but our API, our route for our Stripe is very smart. So it knows whether we actually have a subscription or don't. So if we have a subscription, in that case, we are going to open the billing page. Otherwise, we are going to open the checkout page. So you don't have to do anything different on the client, which is great. And then let's just do window.location.href response.data.url right here. And let's just quickly add the loading state. So const loading set loading is going to be useState false. Make sure you import this from React, of course. Great. Let's set the loading to true in the try block. In the finally, let's do set loading to false like this. And let's add the disabled prop to be loading here as well. Great, so now we have this subscription button, meaning that we can go back inside of our settings page, and just below this div holding our text, let's render that subscription button from add/components subscription button right here, and let's pass in the isPro to be isPro like this. There we go. So you can see that now it says manage subscription, and if I click on it, let's see if it's going to take me to the checkout page. I think we're actually going to get an error. Yes, so we are going to get an error. If I look at my console, there we go, billing error in my console. What we forgot to do, and a very easy way to fix it, is to go inside of your terminal right here, inside of here, and there we go. I think this is where you're going to see your error. So I'm going to zoom out so you can read a bit better. It's going to tell you exactly what went wrong. And it says you can't create a portal session in test mode until you save your customer portal settings in test mode. So if you can't find this link, you can just click on this link and fix it. But if for some reason you can't find this in your console, let's go to Stripe together and try to find that right here. So I'm going to close this right here. And let's see. So what does it say? I'm gonna scroll a bit down. So it mentioned the customer portal, right? So let's see how we can search that customer portal. Okay, so settings, billing, customer portal right here, test mode, and you have to click this activate link button right here. So you can either click on that link from your terminal, which is much faster, but if for some reason you can't find that in your terminal, this is how you do it. And now let's refresh this. And let's try the very same thing again. I'm fairly confident that this time, there we go, it's loading and we are redirected back to billing. So let's just wait a couple of seconds to see how that looks. There we go. Perfect. You can see when it expires and absolutely everything. Great. So let's go ahead and let's return back to AI SaaS tutorial. Perfect. Great job. So before we do that, I just want to play around with a bit more with this subscription and all it can do. So currently when we click on manage subscription and get this loading state, you can see that it says that it expires in 2055, right? So let's go ahead and try and modify the values to see the one that matches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove my user subscription from Prisma. I'm going to click delete this record right here. So, and now it's saving changes. I'm going to refresh, and there we go. No user subscriptions now. I'm going to refresh here again. And this time, when I click on here, it's actually going to redirect me to the checkout page. But before we do that, let's go back inside of our webhook right here, where we actually create the subscription right here. And let's see if we can modify the period end to match only 1 month. And I just realized that I gave you completely wrong information. We don't have to change anything. So what I read was the expiration for the credit card, not for the subscription. My apologies. But still, while we're here, let's test out this button and how it looks when we are not subscribed. So make sure you have removed the subscription from Prisma. One more thing, if Prisma Studio is not working for you, the way you can remove everything from your database is by using the terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and open another one. And I'm going to write npx prisma migrate reset like this. So this is going to clear the entire database and just confirm that with yes. And one important thing, after you do this, make sure you do npx prisma generate again and npx prisma db push. So very important that you do the npx prisma db push after that. So this just cleared the entire database. So now I'm also not going to have any generations at all. See? So I just wanted to give you that information in case Studio is not working for you for any reason. Great. So let's test this to upgrade now right here. So I'm going to give it a fake credit card, my name, and let's click subscribe right here. After a couple of seconds, we're going to go ahead and get redirected back to settings. Let's click on manage subscription this time. And now we are here. And there we go. You can see that it's a month from now. So right now it's July, and we're going to have to renew in August. Great. So make sure you have a subscription active. Make sure that, whoops, I just clicked again. Whoop. Yes, so make sure this says you're currently on a pro plan. Make sure in Prisma Studio that you have an active user subscription working. And now we can go ahead and actually enable this these models right now. So right now I have all 3 generations. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill them up. So I'm going to use this to create my first 1 out of 5 free generations. I'm going to go back in my Prisma Studio. I'm going to go to user API limit. I'm going to find the one for my user, and I'm going to increase the count to 5. So I simulate filling up the entire free generations. But still, if I try something now, I still get the premium model, even though I'm obviously subscribed. You can see that right here. So let's slowly go ahead in each route and let's go ahead and fix these things. So first thing I actually want to change is I no longer want to show this free generations if we are subscribed. So let's do that first. I think that's the easiest thing to change. Let's go ahead inside of our components, inside of free counter right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to accept another prompt here called is pro like this, which is a boolean like that. Is pro is going to be false by default, and in here I'm just going to add if we are pro, so if is pro, return null as well. And now what we have to do is we have to also add that to the sidebar. So let's go inside of our sidebar component right here. Let's go ahead and add is pro boolean prop right here. Let's go ahead and extract it here. So is pro right here to be false like that, and let's pass it here to the free counter is pro like that. And now we have to, oh, I forgot to put a comma. Okay, and now let's go inside of our app folder, dashboard layout.tsx, and let's just add const is pro to be await check subscription like this from /lib subscription, and pass in is pro to be is pro like this. Great. So now if I extract this, you can see that it no longer appears here because we are on Pro. And what we have to do next is also do that on mobile. So let's go inside of our components, inside of navbar right here, and let's add const is pro await check subscription from /lib subscription, and let's pass this to mobile sidebar. So is pro like this. Let's go inside of the mobile sidebar component, which is inside of your components folder right here. Let's go ahead and add is pro boolean right here. Let's extract is pro here, and let's give it a value of false, and let's give this a value of 0 while we are here. And let's pass in the is pro right here. There we go. So now it's working on mobile sidebar as well. Great. So we just fixed the UI for this. And now what we have to do is we have to go through individual routes and fix the generation problem. So still, if I try, since I'm in 5 out of 5 on my count, I'm getting this Pro model. So let's go inside of our app folder, inside of API, inside of conversation route.ts, and let's go ahead and resolve this. So first thing I'm going to add besides this API limit is I'm going to add import check subscription from add/lib subscription right here. And here where I fetch my free trial, I'm also going to check const is pro to be await check subscription like this. And then I'm going to add to this if clause. So if there is no free trial and if we are not pro, only then do we throw the error. And same thing goes for increasing the API limit. So we only want to increase it if we are not pro. So if question mark is pro, sorry, if exclamation point is pro, like this. And now if you go ahead and test your conversation, so test and click generate, you can see that we are officially on pro, meaning that we are not blocked from using the OpenAI model because we have an active subscription. Great. And what we have to do now is we have to copy this in all of our routes. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy these 2 lines right here. So it's taking some time. So let me just refresh this and see what's going on. Okay, so what happened in my case is that the service randomly fell down. So what I did was I shut down my application, I ran npm run dev again, and I refreshed my page. That's it. I also confirmed that my usage has not been filled up. Great. So now that we have that working, you can see how it's no longer blocking us with the premium model. We have to do that for the rest of the routes. So go ahead and just copy this if clause and these 2 lines right here because we're going to need them in the rest. So let's go ahead and do code as well. So replace this with what we just copied. Import check subscription from add/lib check subscription like we did right here. So I'm just going to expand it. Great. And now that we have this, let's also wrap this. So if we are not pro, in that case, let's go ahead and just do this. Great. So now our code should work as well. Now let's go inside of image. Let's go ahead and replace this free trial as well. Let's import check subscription from add/lib subscription like that. Let's go ahead and wrap this. So if we are not pro, in that case, go ahead and wrap this in this if clause. Great. Let's do the same for music. So I'm going to replace this, paste it here, import check subscription from add/lib subscription like this. Great. And here again, only if we are not pro do we increase this API limit like this. And last one, let's do the video right here. So again, select the if clause and free trial, paste it, import check subscription from lib subscription like this, and only increase the limit if we are on pro. So if we are not on pro, in that case, no point in increasing this. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's check if this is working fine. So conversation, we confirm that that is working. How about we try this? So a picture of Swiss Alps, for example. Let's check if that is working fine now. So I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds here. There we go. That is working fine. I'm just going to quickly try and trigger the video generation. For example, clownfish swimming around a coral reef. And I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds to confirm there is no model popping up. Okay, we are not going to wait for the whole video. And same thing for the music. So piano solo. Let's wait a couple of seconds. Great, no model popping up, meaning that it's working. And same thing for code generation. So simple toggle button using React hooks. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds. And there we go. You have officially implemented subscription in your project. And you can go ahead and play around with that. Great job so far. What we have to do next is implement Crisp for customer support and wrap up with doing a landing page and finally deployment. Before we move on to adding Crisp chat for customer conversation, what I want to do first is I just want to add a loading state for my Pro model. So in order to do that, I just quickly gonna go back inside of my components, inside of Pro model right here, and you're gonna notice that we're setting a loading state right here, but we're not using it anywhere. So I just want to add it to this button right here. So disabled is going to be loading like this. So I just wanted to do that so our loading state is not wasted. Great. So if you want to, you can remove your subscription and test the loading model again, or well, you can just leave it like this and move on. Now what I want to do is I want to add some better error handling, because right now if we get an error in any of these models or Stripe or anything, we actually don't get any toast notification about it. It just stops generating. So let's go ahead and let's go inside of our terminal. So yeah, what I have running here is my npm run dev. Here I have the Prisma Studio, and here I have the Stripe webhooks. So make sure you have those running as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install a package called React Hot Toast. So go ahead and run npm install react-hot-toast like this. And after a couple of seconds, go ahead, actually, yeah, so I'm already running the application in this terminal, but you can still just refresh. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's go inside of our components and let's create a new file called toaster-provider.tsx. Mark this as use client. So let me just give you the full name. So toaster-provider.tsx. That's the full name of the component. Great. And export const toaster provider. It's going to be a very simple function which just returns the toaster from React Hot Toast like this. Great. And now that we have this, what you can do is go inside of your app, inside of layout.tsx, and the same way you added modal provider, just add the toaster provider like this. There we go, and import it from add/components toaster provider. Great, and now that you have that, let's for example go inside of app folder, inside of dashboard, routes, conversation page right here. And here where we have our error, you can add an else to this Pro model on open. So this is the onSubmit function, right? So go inside of here, find this handling of 403 error, and you can just add toast, which you can import from React Hot Toast. So I just added that right here. And I'm going to move it all the way to the top right here. And you can just write toast.error, something went wrong like that. So now I'm going to purposely throw an error in here. So in this try, I'm going to write throw new error, something like this. And I'm going to refresh and I'm going to go inside of my conversation here. And I'm going to try and generate, and there we go. Now we have a nice toast that something went wrong. So that's just what I wanted to do in case anything in here goes wrong. Let's at least give our users a nice message here. So let's do that for code as well. So just find the onSubmit and just paste it here and import toast from React Hot Toast like this. Great. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for our image right here. So just catch that right there and import toast from React Hot Toast again, and the same thing for music, toast like this, and the same thing for video right here. So there we go. And don't forget to import toast here as well. So in all of these places, you need to have toast imported from React Hot Toast and make sure it's in the else section of this. Great. And now that we have that, let's also do that in our Pro model right here. So instead of just rendering this error right here, let's just actually do the toast, which you can import from React Hot Toast.error, something went wrong like this. So make sure you imported the toast. Great. And now that you have that, let's also do it in the subscription button component here. So instead of console logging the error. There we go. And of course, import toast here as well. Great. So now we have a nicer error handling in our project. Great. So let's go ahead and let's set up Crisp now. So in order to do that, the first thing we have to do, obviously, is we have to create an account for Crisp. So either go to crisp.chat or write Crisp chat on Google and go ahead and click Get Started or Log In. And of course, it's free. So just finish this input. I'm going to pause the video and show you the dashboard. So in this step, what you can do is just name this genius and leave this to be www.dummy.com. So it doesn't matter for now. Later you can add it to your actual production website. So I just wanted to clear that up. Great, so now that you get this message right here, the only thing that matters for you really is this code right here. So you can technically just add this script, but since we are working with React, we actually have a package for this. So let's go ahead and let's install a package and stay on this screen right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install npm install crisp-sdk-web like this. Wait a couple of seconds and great. And now let's go ahead inside of our components folder and create a new file inside called crisp-chat.tsx like this. Go ahead and mark this as use client. Go ahead and import use effect from React. Go ahead and import crisp from crisp SDK web like this, and export const crisp chat like this. And inside use effect, you're gonna go ahead, add an empty array here and just run crisp.configure like this. And inside you're going to paste this crisp website ID right here. So let me zoom in to show you exactly what you have to copy. So you have window.crisp website ID and copy what is inside of this strings right here. So you can copy the entire string if you want to. So all the way to here like this. There we go. And then just paste it inside like this. So make sure you don't accidentally have double quotes. So if you have it like this is wrong, right? You have to have it like this. There we go. And just paste that. Great. So I'm going to zoom out now. I'm going to zoom out here. And let's go ahead and just return null here. Great. And now that you have that, what you have to do is create a crisp provider. So go inside components, new file, crisp-provider.tsx. So let me just expand this so you can see the full component name. So crisp-provider like this. Mark this as use client again. And just write import crisp chat from /crisp chat or /components crisp chat. And export const crisp provider like this. Return crisp chat like this. Great. And now that you have that, all you have to do is add the crisp provider to your app layout. So go inside app layout right here and go ahead and paste it above the body. So crisp provider like this, and import it the same way you did with toaster provider and model provider. Great. And I think that you can now click on discover my dashboard here. Okay, I'm going to extend this and there we go. You can already see in my lower left corner that I have a crisp icon here. So let's test this out. So yeah, we have some messages here. Let's read that. Let's go back in our inbox. And now I'm going to go ahead and write something. Hello, I have a problem with image generation like that. And you can see how it immediately goes back here. Perfect. Great job. So you successfully implemented Clerk, and you can of course respond to your user. So what are you having problems with? Like this, and you can see how that is immediately reflected here. Great job. You successfully implemented advanced error handling as well as full customer support. Let's go ahead and let's create the last part before deployment, which is the landing page. So first of all, go ahead and sign out. So you are redirected back to / or just go to localhost 3000 without any routes right here. So you're on this landing page, which we are finally now gonna go ahead and make it look like something. So go inside of your app folder and go inside of this landing folder right here and go ahead and create a new file called layout.tsx like this. Go ahead and create a landing layout component like this. The props it's going to accept is children, so go ahead and destructure children like this, and immediately go ahead and give it a type of children react.react node like this. And inside, go ahead and create a main element like this, and give it a class name of h-full bg-hex code 111827 like this, and overflow-auto like this. And inside, go ahead and create another div with a class name of mx-auto like this, max-w screen-xl, h-full, and w-full like this. And inside, you're going to go ahead and render the children like this. Great. Now let's go ahead inside of our page.tsx here, and we can actually remove everything in here, create a new div with a class name of h-full like this, and you can remove these imports from here like that. And first, let's add the landing navbar like this component. So of course, if you save, you're gonna get an error. So let's go inside of our components folder and go ahead and create a new file called landing-navbar.tsx like this. Go ahead and mark this as use client like that. Go ahead and import Montserrat from next/font/Google. Go ahead and import image from next/image. Import link from next/link, import useout from clerk like this, import cn from libutils, and import button component from ./UI button or /components UI button like this. Let's add our font constant. So font is Montserrat like this, and inside of its object, write weight to be 600 and subsets to be Latin like this. Great. Now let's export const landing navbar like this. It's an arrow function. And let's go ahead and extract the is signed in from useout like this. So why are we using useout here from clerk, and everywhere else, if you remember, if you search through this import, we mostly used out. As you can see here, for example, we used out here. So what's the difference? Well, useout is one of React's code available in client components. So that's why I really like clerk, because they support both client components and server components. So you don't have to pick one or another. So that's why in here we have to use a hook, right? If we want to use out, that means we are in server components. Great. So now let's go ahead and return. Let's return a nav element like this. Let's give it a class name of p-4 bg-transparent flex items-center and justify -between like that. And before we go any further with this, let's go back inside of our landing page and just import the landing navbar from add/components landing navbar like this, so we don't have this error and so we can actually see what we are developing. Great. Now inside of here, let's go ahead and add this link component which we imported. Let's go ahead and let's give it an href property to go to / like this and a class name of flex items-center like that. And inside, let's go ahead and create a div with a class name of relative h-8 w-8 and margin right of 4. And inside, we're going to render an image, give it a fill property, give it an alt of logo, and give it a source property of /logo.png like this. Great. And now just outside of this div, which is wrapping our image, go ahead and create an h1 element, genius like this. And go ahead and give it a class name, which is going to be dynamic. So we are going to use cn, text-2xl, font-bold, text-white, and then add a comma and write font-class name like this. There we go. So now we use the Montserrat font. Beautiful. So I'm just going to expand it so you can see how it looks in one line. Beautiful. Great. Besides this, let's go ahead outside of this link component and create a div. And let's create a class name, flex items-center gap-x-2 like that. And inside create another link component like this with an href, which is going to be dynamic dependent on whether we are logged in or not. So if we are logged in that case, we're going to redirect to /dashboard. Otherwise, we're going to redirect to /sign up like this. Great. And now inside of this link component, create a button like this, get started like that. And let's go ahead and give it a variant of outline like this. And let's give it a class name of rounded-full like this. Beautiful. So you successfully finished the landing navbar. Now what we have to do is create a landing hero. So another component, landing hero like this. So same thing, let's go inside of our components and create a new file called landing-hero.tsx like this. Let's go ahead and export const landing hero here. I'm just going to return a div saying hero, and I'm going to go back inside of my landing page here and just import landing hero so we don't have an error and so we can see what we are developing. So let's go back inside of the landing hero, and same thing here. Let's go ahead and let's use is signed in from use out from clerk like that. And now let's go ahead and let's add a class name to this div. So class name is going to be text-white, font-bold, py-36, text-center, and space-y-5 like this. And yes, we have to mark this as client component. Of course, we are using a hook here. Great. Now inside of here, create a new div with a class name of text-4xl for mobile devices. On small, it's going to be text-5xl. On medium, it's going to be text-6xl. On large, it's going to be text-7xl like this. Give it a space-y-5 and font-extra bold like this. And inside, let's go ahead and write h1 element, the best AI tool for like this. And you can see how the more I expand my screen, the larger this text can become, and the more I collapse it, the smaller it's going to be. Great. And now let's go ahead and install a package called typewriter effect. So I'm going to go ahead and run npm install typewriter-effect like this, and I'm going to press enter. There we go. So just refresh your page. And now just below this, let's create another div with the class name of text-transparent, bg-clip-text, bg-gradient-2-r, so to write like this. After that, from-purple-400 to -pink-600. So we're going to give a gradient to our text inside. And inside, write the typewriter component like this from typewriter effect. So import typewriter component from -typewriter effect like this. It's a self-closing tag. And go ahead and give it some options like this. Strings. And we're going to write chatbot with a dot and copy this a couple of times. So the second one is going to be photo generation. Third one is going to be music generation. This one is going to be code generation, and this one is going to be video generation like this. Great. And now let's also give it an option of auto start true and loop true as well. Great. And now you can see how it seems like this is a typewriting effect. Beautiful. And it changes with all of the features that we have in our application. Great. So really neat component here. Great. Now just go ahead outside of this div right here. Create a new div right here with the class name of text-sm on small devices, but on medium it's going to be text-xl, font-light, and text-sync-400 like this. And go ahead and write create content using AI 10 times faster like this. There we go. And let's go ahead and let's try and expand this so you can see how it looks. Great. And now below that, go ahead and create a new div and then add a link inside. Give this an href. It's going to be dynamic. So if we are signed in, again, it's going to be /dashboard. Otherwise, it's going to be /sign-up like this. And make sure you import the link component, not from Lucid React, from next/link like this. Great, so we have that now, and let's add a button component from ./UI button or components UI button like this. Great, and inside of this button, let's write start generating for free like this. And let's give it a variant of premium like this, and let's give it a class name of md text-lg p-4 md p-6 like this, rounded-full, and font-semi-bold like this. So we create a bit of a custom style depending on the screen size. So here is the fuller version. There we go. You can see how nicely it increases depending on our screen size. Great. Now that we have our button finished, let's create a new div with a class name of text-sync-400, text-xs. On medium, it's going to be text-sm and font-normal like this. No credit card required like this, because we have a free tier, so users can test this out for free. Great, so you successfully finished the hero component. Now all that's left is the landing component. So let's go back inside of our layout page right here, and let's add a new component called landing content like this. And same thing, let's go inside of components, create a file called landing-content.tsx, export const landing content like this, and let's just return a div saying content. Let's go back inside of our landing page and import landing content like this from /components landing content, so this error goes away. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's create a class name here. So class name is going to be px-10 pb-20 like that. Remove this, add an h2 element saying testimonials like this, and a class name of text-center, text-4xl, text-white, font-extra bold, and margin bottom of 10 like this. Great. And now let's create a new div, which is going to be our grid. So grid -calls-1 on small devices, sm grid-calls-2, md grid-calls-3, lg grid-calls-4, and gap 4 like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and create an array of our testimonials at the top of this page. So we can also mark this as use client as well. And let's write const testimonials like this, which is an array, which is going to have objects. So name, I don't know, Antonio. Avatar is going to be A like this. Title is going to be software engineer. And description is going to be, this is the best application I've used, or pretty much whatever you want inside. Great. And now that we have one element inside, let's actually go ahead and render that immediately so you can see what we're working with. So testimonials.map item like that. Let's go ahead and return a card. So import card from ./UI card or from /components like this. Let's go ahead and give it a key, which is going to be item.description, and the class name is going to be bg-hash192339 like this, border-none, and text-white like this. Great. And inside, add a card header, again from /components UI card like this. Great. Let's go ahead and give this a card title inside. So make sure you imported card title as well. Great. And give this a class name like this of flex items-center and gap-x-2 like this. Great. So you can see a little component right here. Great. And inside of this card title, open a div, open a paragraph, and write item.name like this, and copy that and write item.title like this. Great. And now let's give it some styles. So right here, I'm going to write class name, text-lg like this, and here class name is going to be text-sync-400 and text-sm like this. Great, so that's it for card title. And now let's write card content like that inside, and we're going to render item.description inside. Great, and give it a class name of pt-4 and px-0 like this. There we go. And then we can go ahead and copy this as many times as you want. So I'm going to copy it 4 times, and there we go. You have your testimonials page, and you can go ahead and edit this the way you like. Perfect. So great job. You finished the entire software as a service with landing page, Stripe, authentication, 5 different AI models, customer support. You've done an amazing job. All that's left is to learn how to deploy this application. So let's go ahead and let's deploy our application. So first thing we have to do is we have to go inside of our package.json right here, and we have to add a post install script to be Prisma generate like this. Great. Now I'm going to go inside of my terminal, and you can finally shut down all of this webhooks and Prisma Studios and whatnot. So I'm going to shut down all of this, and I'm going to only leave one open like this. Great. Now what I want you to run is npm run lint. So go ahead and check if there are any errors in your project. So I don't have any errors, so great. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go inside GitHub, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new repository. I'm going to name this repository AI SaaS tutorial like this. It's going to be private for me, and I'm going to click create repository right here. And since this is an existing repository, I'm going to use the second option. So push an existing repository from the command line. I'm going to copy all of this, and I'm going to paste it here. But actually, before I do that, ignore this. Go ahead and give it a git add, git commit, and just add initial commit like this. So everything is committed. Great. And then paste this and push to master like this. And once I refresh, you can see that my project is right here along with all the code. Great. Now we can go ahead in our Vercel, and you can go ahead, I'm just going to refresh. Go ahead and click add new project right here, and go ahead and select this AI SaaS tutorial, which we just created right here. Perfect. What we have to do now is we have to add all of our environment variables here, and we're going to have to change them once we deploy. So let's go ahead and let's go inside of our .environment file, and you can just go ahead and select absolutely everything and just paste it inside like this. And then just go ahead and click deploy. And of course, you can see that next public app URL is localhost. So don't worry about that. We're going to have to change that. But first, we need to see if our deployment is going to pass. So I'm going to pause this and see if there are any errors that I get. And there we go. My application is successfully deployed. But now we have to change a couple of things. So let's see what that is. I'm going to click continue to dashboard right here. And I'm going to go ahead and get my URL. So you need to have your URL. So right here for me, it's ai-sas-tutorial.vercel.app. So what I have to do first is I have to go inside, let's first go into Stripe. So stripe.com right here, and we have to change this webhook, right? So let's go ahead, let's go inside of webhooks. If there are no results, just click on developers again and go inside webhooks here. And we have a local listener here, right here, but that's local. So go ahead and click add endpoint, paste your new URL /API/webhook like this. So webhook, only one like this. And now you have to select the events that we are listening to. So what are those events? Well, let's take a look in the webhook route right here. So first event we need is checkout.session completed. So let's go ahead and find that. So we have the checkout option here, and let's select checkout.session.completed like that. And the second one we are looking for is invoice.payment succeeded. So let's go ahead and find that as well. So all the way down we have an invoice, and let's find where it is. Invoice.payment succeeded, and click add events and add endpoint like this. And there we go. Now you have your sign-in secret right here. So go ahead and click reveal here and copy this secret. And now go back inside of your project settings here. So I clicked on settings in this project. Go ahead and click on environment variables. And let's go ahead and find that webhook secret. So it's last one for me, Stripe webhook secret. Let's go ahead and click edit right here and just replace it with a new one and click save. Make sure you copied the sign-in secret and not whatever this is. So it needs to be this sign-in secret. Great. And what we have to change next is the next public app URL. And that is going to be this very URL that we are using. So let me see what this is. So https ai-sas-tutorial-vercel.app like this without the trailing slash like this. So edit that. and paste it here. Just make sure there are no spaces, like that, and save the file. Great. And after you've changed that, go in your deployments and click redeploy again. Make sure you don't accidentally check this. So just click redeploy like this. So I'm gonna pause the video again, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like once it's finished. Great, so it's finished, and one thing I'm gonna do before I visit the website is I'm just gonna reset my entire database, and I'm gonna push it again. So inside my terminal, I'm gonna write npx prisma migrate reset like this. This is gonna remove the entire database, so be careful. And after this is done, npx prisma db push again. And after a couple of seconds, I'm gonna go ahead and visit my website. So we're gonna visit this right now, and there we go. It's deployed right here, and you can go ahead and click get started, for example. I'm gonna use Google right here. I'm gonna log in with my account. And you can see that I have my free generations right here. So let's go ahead and test it out now. For example, what is the radius of the sun right here? There we go. Let's ask it what is the radius of the earth right here. Let's try of Mars. So I'm just using this up to fill up the questions. What is the earth of the, I don't know, Venus, like this. It really knows everything, huh? And Neptune. Great, now we used 5 out of 5, so I'm gonna add another one. Now we get a prompt. So let's see if this is going to work. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add a fake credit card here. I'm gonna click subscribe right here. And let's see if that is going to work or if we are gonna get any errors here. Okay, so I'm logged out. I think that's something with the configuration, but let me log in again to see if... Yeah, okay, so we are on a pro plan. Great. I'm not sure why we logged out. I think it might be... I think it might be because of the redirection stuff, or maybe some hydration error that triggered the logout. I'm not entirely sure. That's something I'll have to look into. And I'm not sure it happens every time, because for me, it worked normally in production. Great, so this works now. And just one thing I want to bring your attention to. So there are stuff inside that are going to take too long to generate for Versal Hobby, right? For example, if I do Swiss Alps like this, I think this is still going to work because it's not a very complex model, so OpenAI works faster, so this works. But for example, if I try music generation like piano solo, it might take so long that it actually throws an error. So that is because we just deployed on Versal Hobby plan, right? So we're using Versal for free right now. So what you can do, you can see it says hobby right here. So what you can actually do is either upgrade to a newer plan. So you see, for me it worked, but there's a chance that you get an error. You can either upgrade to a larger plan, and then you can increase how much, what is the timeout for your API routes, or you can go ahead and search for Versal AI SDK, which is something I'm going to work with in my next tutorial. So Versal AI SDK works on the Edge network, which is also something you can Google and find out more about. It basically has a larger timeout and it's generally faster, and it supports streaming of content. So that's what we are going to play around with in my next tutorial. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. You did an amazing job. Remember to leave a like, share, and subscribe if you like this content, and see you in the next video.